So now we come to our 18th chapter. So we need a drum roll. 18th chapter is very intense, very dense, very potent philosophy. I just want to say at the beginning, don't become bewildered or disheartened at any point in the chapter thinking that you don't understand it, because remarkably, as the chapter thickens, it becomes more simplistic. Towards the very end of the chapter, it's as if Bhaktivinoda Thakur is collecting all the loose ends and just putting them in a very simple format for us to digest. So he's opening the whole topic out of Mayavad, of Vivartavad, Parinamvad, etc. And then he's going to bring it all together very, very simply. So don't be intimidated by the language at any point. So, but it is a dense chapter. It is incredibly powerful, beautiful chapter. It's the philosophy of Sachinandan Gaurahari, this Bhedabheda-tattva. This is his philosophy. So now we're fully in the mood of Sachinandan Gaurahari. So chapter 18, Prameya Bhedabheda-tattva. Vaini Madhav had a wicked mind. So we remember about Vaini Madhav from the previous chapter, trying to rearrange Brajanath's marriage, and then Brajanath rejecting him fully, realizing what he was up to, what he was doing. Vaini Madhav had a wicked mind. Thus, when Brajanath scorned him, he decided to seek revenge by teaching Brajanath and the Mayapur Vaishnavas a lesson. Bhaktivinoda Thakur brings in, this is such a holistic process. He brings in so many different characters, so many different so many different scenarios, because this is life. It's not just life sitting on a pink cloud and it's just all sweet honey, and as if we're just all in another dimension. We are in this material world, and we have to navigate through it with our various karmas, etc. We have to go through that. So he's throwing out all the different scenarios that we might have to confront. It's fascinating.
He himself lived a real life.
That's the point. That's the point. Yes, such a real life. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. A householder with what? 12 children. A magistrate, enormous responsibilities, writing so many books, preaching on the circuit, visiting holy places, counseling, so many areas he attended to. It's impossible. He's Gora Shakti. He's the Shakti of Gora, which means he's empowered by Swarup Shakti to perform, like Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada also operated on so many different levels when he had a huge, enormous society and had to deal with so many problems day by day, plus acquiring land, plus producing books, plus encouraging the Sankirtan, so many different things. Just their extraordinary capacity just expands. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur definitely in that caliber. Yes. So Vaini Madhav made a plan with some like-minded friends that when Brajanath returned from Mayapur, they would surround him in a secluded place near Lakshman Hill and give him a sound thrashing. This happens in India. It's not happens every single day in India. These sorts of things happen. Perhaps it happens in the West as much, I'm not sure. But certainly it happens here. Somehow or other, Brajanath got wind of all this. Yeah, and that's the way it works in India too. You kind of get wind of these things. There's always someone who's going to talk about it. So you'll get to know what's happening. And consulted with Babaji. They agreed that he would come to Mayapur less frequently, and then only during the day, and accompanied by a bodyguard. Brajanath had some tenants in the village, amongst whom Harish was expert at stick fighting. One day Brajanath called him and made a request. He said, Harish, I'm having a little difficulty these days, but if you help me, I might have a way out. Harish said, Thakur, I can lay down my life for you. I will kill your enemy today if you tell me. This is like bravado talk from a lower caste man. He will always do like this, always speak very loudly about what he's going to do. The actuality is always different. Brajanath replied, Vaini Madhav. Oh, Harish said, Thakur, I will kill your enemy today if you tell me. Brajanath replied, Veni Madhav is a very wicked man, and he means to cause me some trouble. He is creating so much disturbance that I dare not go to visit the Vaishnavas in Srivasangam. He has arranged with some of his devious friends to create trouble for me on my way home. Harish became disturbed when he heard this, and he replied, Thakur, as long as there is breath in my body, you need have no fear. It looks that this stick of mine will soon come to good use against Veni Madhav. Just take me along with you whenever you go to Mayapur, and I will handle 100 opponents by myself. After Brajanath had made this arrangement with Harish, he resumed his visits to Mayapur every second or fourth day, but he could not stay late. Yet he remained dissatisfied within himself when he could not discuss tattva. So obviously their exchanges were very much limited to the time of day, and perhaps Babaji's duties also at that time. After some 10 or 20 days had passed in this way, the wicked Veni Madhav was bitten by a snake and died. When Brajanath heard the news, he wondered, did he meet such a fate because of his envy of the Vaishnavas? Then he concluded his allotted lifespan had finished, and so he died. I think that's very significant, that Brajanath doesn't dwell on the fact that Veni Madhav was actually offensive to the Vaishnavas. He quickly is soft-hearted and thinks that his allotted lifespan had finished. His initial thought, yes, he's attacking the Vaishnava, but in second thoughts, he was thinking no. So I think personally that's significant because Babaji has the same response also. Adya vaba santante va mrityu vai parinam dhruvaha. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:138. Did I read everything? Yeah. Yeah. One may die today or after 100 or after hundreds of years, but death is sure for every living entity. This is the eternal truth. So Brajanath is thinking like that. He's in an eternal vision. He's not caught up, in other words, in Gramya Katha or sensationalizing some incident in the world. He's a qualified person. We've described. Now Brajanath is thinking, now my path to Srivasangan in Mayapur is clear. That day Brajanath reached Srivasangan a little after dusk. He offered obeisances to Raghunath Das Babaji and said, from today I will be able to come to serve your lotus feet every day, for the obstacle in the form of Vedi Madhav has left this world. At first, the soft-hearted Babaji became a little disturbed on hearing about the death of this spiritually unconscious person, Anudita Vivek Jiva. Same mood as, Brajanath went the other way around. First of all, he condemned, and then he became soft-hearted. But Babaji at the beginning is soft-hearted. Then he calmed himself and said, Swakarma fal buk pumam. Everyone enjoys or suffers the result of his karma. The jiva belongs to Krishna, and he will go wherever Krishna sends him. Anyway, Baba, I hope you have no other anxiety. So they very quickly climb over this obstacle. They're not going to sit around and talk about it. It's just not necessary. Brajanath, I hope you have no other anxiety, says Baba. Brajanath, only one. I have missed hearing your nectarian talks all these days. Today I want to hear the remaining instructions on Das Mula. Babaji, I am always available for you. Now, where did we stop last time? Are there any questions in your heart after our last conversation? Brajanath, what is the name of Sri Gaurkishore's pure and invaluable philosophical teachings? The previous acharyas have established the philosophies of Advaitavad, exclusive monism, Dvaitavad, dualism, Shuddhadvaitavad, purified non-dualism, Vaishisht Advaitavad, specialized non-dualism, and Dvaitavad, dualism with monism. So, just to clarify this, it's described that in the Sri Sampradaya, This is Vaishisht Advaitavad. This is going to be described in the next page, but I'm just saying it before. Vaishisht means a speciality in the oneness, because previously it was Sankaracharya Advaitavad, but then Vaishisht Advaitavad is like almost like a soft cell um, re programming of the people into the correct school of thought. The Sri Sampradaya is the initial Sampradaya, the first Sampradaya, Ramanuja. This is about 1037, Ramanuja Acharya. And he preached this Vaishisht Advaitavad. There's a speciality within the oneness. In other words, it's not just all Mayavad, which is what Sankaracharya was propagating, that Advaitavad. It's Sankaracharya, for his purpose in bringing the Vedic teachings back into India after they'd been pushed out by the Buddhistic philosophy, which is also a Mayavad philosophy. But he preached the same Mayavadi philosophy to hold those followers, to give them confidence. He's preached the same Advaita philosophy. But then Ramanuja, he said, no, it's not all one. There's a speciality in the oneness. In other words, there's the Jiva and Krishna. There's a distinction between them. And then Madhavacharya came, the second one. And then his philosophy is called Dvaitavad. This is the dualistic. No, he says there's two. And you always see Madhava holding up two fingers. Very distinct. So Ramanuja was like initiating it. And then Madhavacharya, 100 years later, was substantiating it fully, clearly. And Madhavacharya also introduced the Murti to purify the whole misconceptions. So, and then there is the Rudra Sampradaya. This is Shuddha Advaita. This is purified dualism. So now it's becoming even more pure.
Non-dualism.
Oh,
in the book it says non-dualism.
Specialized non-dualism. Okay. No. Yes.
Purified non-dualism.
Okay. And then Dvaita Dvaitavad, dualism. This is going to be discussed on the next couple of pages, so I won't preempt. We'll just carry through. And but the Rudra Sampradaya brought it even more into this distinction, and the Kurma Sampradaya brought it even, said actually worship of the gopis should be there, but they didn't have the understanding of what is Parakiya Bhav. That was an ingredient they didn't have, which doesn't really take you into Brajadam. Without Parakiya Bhav fully exposed and understood, and only Mahaprabhu could do that, then it's somewhat deficient. All the Sampradayas had something missing. And in principle, all the Sampradayas, which is going to be explained, but I'm just preempting here to give us something of an idea where we're going, were believing in what was called Vastu Parinamvad. Vastu is Krishna. Krishna is the Vastu. And he is transforming into the worlds. Everything is emanating from him, and he is transforming. But Mahaprabhu, he came, no, it's not Krishna. It's not the Vastu Parinamvad. It is Shakti Parinamvad. It's that Shakti, Swarup Shakti, that is transforming. So that's the principle. Now, when we've got the principle, then we can understand more of the details. So we'll read on from there. So his question is, has Gauranga accepted any of these, or has he founded a different philosophical school? When you were instructing me about the system of Sampradaya, you said that Sri Gauranga belongs to the Brahma Sampradaya. In that case, should we consider him to be an Acharya of Madhavacharya's Dvaitavad? Babaji, you should hear the 8th shlok of Dasmula. Now, as we've said a number of times, why isn't this working very well? These Dashmula sloks are so enlightening because they give us the seed of the whole chapter we're going to unpack. Each Dasmula slokas, because when we've been reiterating the chapters, We just need to read the Das Mula, and then we completely get an idea, an understanding of what has gone on in the chapter. Hari Shakti Sarvam Chit Achit Akilam Syat Parinat Parinita Nata Nati Vivartam no Satyam Shrutim Iti Virudam Kali Malam Harer Veda Bedo Shruti Vihati Tattvam Suvimilam Tata Prema Shidir Bhavati Nitaram Nitya Vishaye. This is Dasmul 8. The entire spiritual and material creation is a transformation of Krishna's Shakti. This is what I've just explained 2 minutes ago. I said the same thing. So this is what this chapter's going to substantiate, that it's the Shakti, not Krishna. Krishna is not doing anything. So we have to understand this dynamic. Most of this was actually begun to be opened in the 14th chapter. Shakti Tattva is so important. This 14th chapter is paramount. And then from the 14th chapter, we've had 3 on the Jiva to get the balance between Krishna and the Jiva. And now we're reconciling the relationship between the Jiva and Krishna. This understanding will give us the focus of how is that sambandha going to be effective. The Jiva has the same qualities in a minute form as Krishna has as the complete. So therefore, they are one, that they were talked about as being one by Sankaracharya, but now the reality is being placed that no, they're 2 distinct, as the other Sampradaya Acharyas have substantiated. But there's intricacies within their Sampradayas that only Mahaprabhu himself could actually purify. And all of this highlights the speciality of Mahaprabhu and his gifts to this world. He is purifying all the Sampradayas. Because Brajanath's question is, what is, has he founded a different philosophical school? No, Mahaprabhu has actually come into this Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, but he's purifying all the Sampradayas simultaneously. The entire spiritual and material creation is a transformation of Krishna's Shakti. Shakti Parinambha. Try to remember some of these terminologies. It'll make it a lot easier when we go through. The impersonal philosophy of illusion, Vivartavad, is not true. It's not true. This Vivartavad. This was what Sankaracharya propagated. This idea, and it'll be explained. This Vivartavad, this illusion, that God is in illusion about his own being, etc. This is what it essentially amounts to. That God himself. And another thing I just want to mention here, in this chapter, the word Brahm is meaning Krishna. It's meaning the entirety of creation. Sometimes, according to the context, it might mean the Brahmajyoti, and sometimes it might mean the entirety of creation, and sometimes it means individually the Supreme Lord. So Brahm has a very large, context or understanding that we can appreciate. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he used the word Brahmand to make it more simple for us. But here it's in its original written as Brahm. So just to remember this. It is an impurity that has been produced by Kali Yuga. Oh, are we surprised when we've just unveiled a little bit of the nature of this Asuric world, Kali Yuga? So what is this Asuric bhav that's in Kali Yuga? Is this Vivartavad, this Mayavad, is so strong. Mayavad essentially means that you want to enjoy Krishna's world. It's Krishna's world, and our duty is to serve his world, not to exploit his world. If we try to exploit it, we're going to suffer. We've already discussed all these in the 3 chapters on Jaiva Dharma. It is an impurity that has been produced by Kali Yuga, and it is contrary to the teachings of the Vedas. The Vedas support Achintya Bheda-Abheda-tattva, inconceivable oneness and difference as the pure and absolute doctrine. Inconceivable oneness and difference. Jiva is Anuchit and Krishna is Vibhuchit, but Jiva has the same constitutional essence as the Vibhuchit, but in infinitesimal proportion to the Supreme Lord. We've said this almost every day, to consider the insignificance of the Jiva in comparison to the complete fullness of Krishna. And we've discussed even the 10 similarities between the Jiva and Krishna, just to make it clear. But it's inconceivable. It's inconceivable because it's beyond the conditioned soul's thought and process. I was just reading today how in the Manu Samhita it's saying that one should not debate or argue anything that is beyond thought. In other words, that has words and logic, etc. But the conclusion is beyond that, then this shouldn't be attempted to be debated or argued over. Because we don't know. We should wait for the truth to descend in the heart with realization and practice. And we also said the other day, and this is from the Vedanta Sutra, and the verse is Tarak Pratishtam Anato. That's the verse. And it means that when the Lord's inspiration comes in the heart of the sadhak, the mind knows, the heart feels, and the soul celebrates. So it's automatic. It's automatic according to our sadhan bhajan. And the sadhan is to connect in sambandha to the Supreme Lord in prayer, in devotion. This is what our sadhan is about, devotion. Our devotion to our chanting, our devotion to our sevas, etc. So that mood of devotion is going to make the sambandha. It's very simple. But we can't do it.
But I don't understand. So we should follow that? That we should not discuss? Or
No, we should not discuss things that are beyond thought. You can talk with a similar person who has the same understanding, but to argue, no, it's saying specifically to argue or debate, to debate things beyond our comprehension.
Discuss is a different thing.
Discussing is a different thing, that you can discuss it, but why should we discuss something that's beyond our intelligence? We can read Shastra and wait for the appreciation and understanding to come in the consciousness, which it will by Krishna's mercy. But if you discuss and discuss, that's not necessarily going to... No, it's not discussing that's mentioned in the Manu Samhita.
Okay.
It's arguing and debating.
Okay.
Like we see sometimes some debates go on.
Yeah.
And, was Prabhupada a Saki or was he a Manjari or a Sakiras? We don't know these things. Unless you've got concrete evidence, then shut up. And listen to the acharyas, what they have to say, and then don't try and make up some philosophy about it or some contention with it, because it's beyond our thought. Understand?
Yeah.
Do you agree? Okay.
But you often say that Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was Manjari, just like all
100%.
9.
Because my Gurudeva said so, because he's the authority.
That's the concrete evidence.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And his name is given and everything. The different acharyas have given conclusively. But there are some who don't agree with the acharyas, and they want to make debate about it. And lots of people like to have debate about it because perhaps they've got some material intelligence and it gives them a chance to exhibit their material intelligence in some form. But it doesn't bring the truth. Yeah. The point is, the truth is what we're interested in. And the truth is what is spoken by the sages and the rishis. So this Das Mula is presenting the truth, the authenticity. We love the truth. And there's no argument about that. The Vedas support Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva, inconceivable oneness and difference, as the pure and absolute doctrine, and one can attain perfect love for the eternal absolute when he accepts this principle. Isn't that our goal, to attain love, perfect love for the eternal absolute? If that's our goal, genuinely, which has nothing to do with this material world at all, it's an internal connection, then one will accept this principle. That's called Sharanagat. This is the process of Sharanagat. What does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? Sarva dharmam parityaja mam ekam sharanam brajam aham tam sarva pyapabhyo moksha yishyami masucha. Don't worry, masuchaha. Just abandon all varieties of religion and just serve me. He's saying like that. All scripture are saying the same thing, but because of our deluded mentalities caused by the negative environment and the Mayavad atmospheres that we live in, only in this age of Kali it's like that, to such a degree, where almost the whole populace are bewildered. The whole populace are agreeing with this slaughterhouse education, slaughterhouse governments. What do the governments propagate principally? Economic development, make money. So to make money, you have to go to a school and you have to get this competitive exam, etc. This is the most important thing in life. And even devotees, qualified devotees, send their children there. So many, believing that that is going to make the child happy, because actually the devotee hasn't purified this misconception themselves. They think that material acquisition is going to produce happiness. But we've seen it. Haven't we seen it in our lives? So many rich and famous apparent people. Are they happy? Practically never. But others become envious of that. They think that they would be happy. Anyway, so that's an old story. The conclusive teachings. Okay, now we've spoken the Das Mula.
Can I ask, how to understand that before Mahaprabhu came, none of these very exalted Vaishnavas had the Achintya Bheda philosophy. Was it never known before?
No,
Lord Chaitanya?
Practically not. Just like Raganuga Bhakti was there by some greatly potent personalities, some Siddha Purushas. Of course, it's always there, but to a minimal degree. We even read in Bhagavatam, Queen Kunti, she couldn't understand how Krishna was being bound by Mother Yashoda. She couldn't understand this Madhurya Bhav. Nobody could. Krishna didn't come to explain his Madhurya Bhav. He came, Yadai Pratyanaya Sadhanam Vinashayatadus. He came to kill the warring Kshatriya armies. That was the purpose of his. And he's called Leela Purushottam. He just enjoys his own Leelas. Mm-hmm. But Mahaprabhu specifically has come to give Prem Purushottam. So this Prem Purushottam, this is what Mahaprabhu this is why Mahaprabhu is such an exceptional tattva. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about Mahaprabhu's tattva. So he had to purify all the sampradayas and get them, because they didn't have it, the essential truth complete, even though they're great personalities but remember, all of the personalities Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes in Navadvip Mahatmya, that Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, and Nimbaditya, they all met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All of them met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All of them met him prior to Mahaprabhu's advent. And they all understood what was Mahaprabhu's final conclusion. And Mahaprabhu cautioned them all, don't talk about this now. This is not the time to actually open the box right now. I will open the box myself. Mahaprabhu himself, Krishna himself, will actually explain. It's so subtle that the jiva has to accept that God has many lovers who are wives of other people. This goes against the grain of material dharma as strongly as you can possibly have it. It's condoning this activity of a woman's unchasteness. And we know that the chastity of a woman creates the strength in a society. And yet this example of Krishna goes completely contrary to that. How are we going to assimilate that teaching? Because without Parakya Bhav fully explained, you cannot enter into the mood of Vrindavan. Because the gopis hold the highest conception of love for Krishna. No one in existence has more love for Krishna than the gopis, headed by Sri Radhika. And this was not common at all. Even after Mahaprabhu came, we've spoken before, when in Jaipur, they wanted to install, the king there wanted to install Radha and Govinda. And the Smartas, the Ramanujas, they said, no, who is this Radha? Where is your evidence? Where is your Basya? And then they called Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but he was too invalid. And then Baladev Vidyabhushan went and he wrote the Govinda Basya to substantiate, to give evidence that Radhika can stand beside Krishna. And this was what in this was like 200 years after Mahaprabhu. So when is that? 1700s, yes, 1700s. So this only was sort of like put in the world at that time. So we must appreciate how, because we have been brought up with it from the beginning of our devotional service. So we accept it, like, just pass me the salt or pass me the water. Tell me about Parakira, Radha and Krishna and the gopis. We've heard about it. So we've become, purified sufficiently to accept this. But more than that, we've had the influence of the Mahamantra, which perhaps we don't fully appreciate. It's the influence of the Mahamantra that has enabled us to accept it so easily. If we weren't vibrating that Mahamantra, it would be very hard for us to accept Parakya Bhav. The Mahamantra has also been there previously, but it was never empowered the way that Mahaprabhu has empowered it. Mahaprabhu speaks extensively and demonstrates in his own Leela about meeting and separation. This was never on the table previously to Mahaprabhu, practically. We have Jaidev Goswami in the 13th century, but he could not write that Radhika is putting her, Krishna is putting his flute and peacock feather, the lotus feet. What's that? Manasi Mandaram, Dehi Pala Palavam, Udaram. This verse that Jaidev Goswami couldn't write himself. How does that verse start off? Smaragarala Kandanam, Dehi Pada Palavam, Udaram. This verse, I didn't say it all. I'll think of it in a minute. He couldn't write it himself. Krishna had to come and write that verse. And Jaidev Goswami was such a great, eloquent saint in the court of King Akbar in that time. But he couldn't appreciate Parak because Mahaprabhu had not advented yet. So Krishna, by his potency, he gives us the ability, the what? The realization. He gives us that. Directly, Krishna is giving us that realization in our hearts to accept Parakya. It's coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's coming from him that we can accept it comfortably and not think, I'm not going to believe in that God. He's dancing with other men's wives. It's a very, very subtle truth that he's come to propagate.
Krishna is the one who reveals.
Well, Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. Krishna himself is coming to expose the reality of the gopis' prem. And previously, the gopis weren't even accepted as Krishna's beloveds How can they be? They're married to other men. Mother Yashoda wouldn't even think about it. The respectable people of Vrindavan didn't even know that their daughters were all going to the forest late at night and dancing with this beautiful boy. At the very end, Jiva Goswami explains in his Gopal Champu that they did, but principally they didn't. But this is a very, 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 very confidential pastime, giving us the entrance into Madhurya Dham. So Ramanuja wasn't entrusted for that. Baladev, Nityananda wasn't entrusted. He was entrusted for Shuddha Bhakti. And Madhavacharya also the same, for powerful distinction between the Jiva and Krishna, worship, and Ballabha Acharya the same, but more close to the gopis, but not understanding Parakya. And Nimbaditya, also very, very powerful personality. But as I said at the beginning of this, what I was just saying now, they all had darshan of Mahaprabhu, all of them. And Mahaprabhu rectified or purified, gave the additions to their sampradayas, because we talked in the 13th chapter about the need for a sampradaya. If there's no sampradaya, there's no authentic lineage, there's no authentic dynasty. Where will a sensitive, focused sadhak put his heart? Because we have to put our heart into these things. If we're not putting our heart, just our brains, our minds, our little minds, that's not going to be sufficient for realization. The full self has to be absorbed with full attention, and then only can that complete shraddha manifest. It can't be half-baked, can it? We have to have the full thing. You have to have full confidence, full faith. So, listen, we didn't discuss very much of this chapter, but we did lay a good platform. I'm very satisfied, actually, because today we've laid a good, solid platform. This is a powerful chapter. Believe me, it's a pivotal chapter. It's very intricate with many aspects of this truth. But we'll continue tomorrow because our time is over. I'm going to just read this one paragraph because even though we're a little bit over. The conclusive teachings of the Upanishads are known as Vedanta, and in order to bring their precise meaning to light, Vyasadeva compiled a book of 4 chapters called Brahma Sutra, or Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta commands great respect amongst the intellectual class. In principle, Vedanta Sutra is widely accepted as the proper exposition of the truths taught in the Vedas. From this Vedanta Sutra, the different acharyas extract different conclusions, which are just suitable to support their own philosophies. Now we're going to talk about Sankaracharya and Madhavacharya and the different personalities. So tomorrow we'll go there. Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Achintya, inconceivable oneness and difference. Ki jai. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Go Premanandi. So now we come to our chapter 18, this Bheda-Abheda, and we're on page 404, but I just want to read again the translation for the Dasmula Shlok on page 403. So the translation is, the entire spiritual and material creation is a transformation of Krishna's Shakti. So this is what we've been studying since the 14th chapter. It's Krishna's Shakti that is transforming. This is going to be brought out. This transformation is called Parinam. This is, in Sanskrit, transformation means Parinam. So this Parinam Shakti, not this Vastu Parinam, that Krishna is not transforming. It's his Shakti and energy that are transforming. These are basic principles and truths. But once we contemplate these for some time, then we start to appreciate the reality of this. And who is that Shakti? This is Sri Radhika. So all our focus is on Sri Radhika. And we relish to hear the pastimes of Sri Radhika as well as Radha-tattva. So this is giving us conclusively a focus on what is Radha-tattva. This is most important to appreciate in our understanding of the complete picture, the complete situation, we can say, the complete place that we're situated in. The entire spiritual and material creation is a transformation of Krishna's Shakti. The impersonal philosophy of illusion, Vivartavad, is not true. Now, these two things are going to be brought out very clearly in the chapter. It is an impurity that has been produced by Kali Yuga. Yes, it's only in this time we have these various Kali Yuga religions, in principle Christianity, and we have Islam. These two religions principally, and at heart they are both leaning towards like a Mayavad influence. We have the personality of Jesus Christ, yet at the same time, when we examine the various Christian mystics, the actual conclusion that they come to is not about connecting with the form of the Lord so much. Some will talk that way, but most is talking about the divine light. And certainly Islam is in that direction also, which is an impersonal conception, which is a Mayavad conception ultimately, because it's about the individual rather than about the personality of Godhead. Only in this philosophy coming from the Vedas do we have an absolutely clear picture of the personality of the Lord, his form, his qualities, his pastimes, etc. This is what's all opened out in the Vedic teachings specifically. It is an impurity that has been produced by Kali Yuga and is contrary to the teachings of the Vedas. The Vedas support, yes, previously there was no, when Krishna was on the planet 5,000 years ago, Christianity had not manifested, Islam had not manifested 5,000 years ago. These are new religions in the Kali Yuga. And Advaitavad also was not there previously. So all of these misconceptions are manifesting only in Kali Yuga. And this Jaiva Dharma is going to purify these misconceptions very clearly. The Vedas support Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva, inconceivable oneness and difference, as the pure and absolute doctrine. And one can attain perfect love for the eternal absolute when he accepts this principle. Yes, the Jiva's identity. We are a particle of Krishna, but the Mayavads will exaggerate that aspect and try to make that a prominent feature, that they are God, but we'll hear this as we go through. So yesterday, we didn't get very far. We just read the first paragraph at the top of 404, and then we began, I'll read this again, we can refresh this. So from the top of 404, the conclusive teachings of the Upanishads are known as Vedanta, and in order to bring their precise meaning to light, Vyasadeva compiled a book of 4 chapters called Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta commands great respect amongst the intellectual class. In principle, Vedanta Sutra is widely accepted as the proper exposition of the truths taught in the Vedas. From this Vedanta Sutra, the different acharyas extract different conclusions which are just suitable to support their own philosophies. So now we're going to go into Sankaracharya and appreciate what maxims, so to speak, that he took out of the Vedic teachings to support his Advaitavad. Again, this is a Kali Yuga religion, Advaitavad. It wasn't initially supported by the Vedas. It's still not supported by the Vedas, never supported by the Vedas. But the expertise of Lord Shiva as Sankaracharya manifested this, and it's going to be described, the reasons, etc. Sri Sankaracharya has used Vedanta Sutra to support his impersonal theory of illusion, which is called Vivartavad, illusion. He said that that one comprises the very essence of Brahm if one accepts any transformation in Brahm. I'll read that again. He said that one comprises the very essence of Brahm if one accepts any transformations in Brahm, that the doctrine of transformation, Parinamvad, is therefore completely faulty. So he's saying there's no transformation in Krishna in connection with the existence of the Jiva coming from Brahm, that there's only Brahm, there's only this supreme, there's not the two. As we've described Madhvacharya, he was emphasizing two. Ramanuja emphasized two. The other sampradayas also, they emphasizing two. So this is the distinction that comes after Sankaracharya, to purify Sankaracharya, to purify this Advaitavad. He said that one comprises the very essence of Brahm, that one, that Advaita, comprises the very essence of Brahm. If one accepts any transformation of Brahm, that the doctrine of transformation, Parinambad, is therefore completely faulty. So there can be no transformation according to Sankaracharya. And that Vivartavad is the only reasonable philosophy. According to his own needs, Sri Sankaracharya collected some Vedic mantras to support his Vivartavad, which is also known as Mayavad. So Vivartavad is Mayavad. This is talking about the illusion. We are in illusion until the illusion is cleared, and then I am actually that one Brahm. I am that one Godhead. This is ultimately what Sankaracharya is propounding. And this is called Mayavad. We can understand from this that Parinamvad has been popular from early times, and that Sri Sankaracharya checked its acceptance by establishing Vivartavad, which is a sectarian doctrine. In other words, Parinamvad, this transformation of Brahm, was there for a long time previously. The transformation, they are calling it Brahm, and this I explained yesterday. This is called Vastu, Parinamvad, this transformation of Krishna, of Brahm. But Mahaprabhu, he purified that misconception and said, no, it's Shakti, Shakti that is transforming. And we understand from the 14th chapter as well as the 15th chapter that this manifestation is coming from Swarup Shakti. Swarup Shakti is manifesting the Chit Shakti. From the Chit Shakti is coming the Jiva Shakti. From the Jiva Shakti is coming Jiva Tatastha Shakti. So this is it's all coming from Shakti, not from Vastu, not from Krishna. It's not Brahm is transforming. I'm just repeating it a few times because it's a wonderful topic, in fact. Establishing Vivartavad, which is a sectarian doctrine. Sriman Madhvacharya was dissatisfied with Vivartavad, so he propounded the doctrine of dualism, Dvaitavad, which he also supported with statements from the Vedas to suit his own purpose. So Madhvacharya is saying it's two, the Jiva and Krishna. But it's within the Vastu Parinavad. It's within the Krishna is transforming, which is also supported with statements from the Vedas to suit his own purpose. Similarly, Ramanujacharya taught specialized non-dualism, Vaishisht Advaita. Vaishisht means speciality. There's a speciality within the oneness. This is what Ramanuja propounded. And the speciality is that there are two, not one. Originally it was Advaita, one. Ramanuja is saying no, there's a speciality in there, it's two. Then Madhvacharya is saying no, it's distinct. It's Dvaita, it's two. This is the sequence. Sri Nimbaditya Acharya taught dualism with monism, Dvaita Dvaitavad, and Sri Vishnu Swami taught purified non-dualism, Shuddhadvaitavad. So these are two different types of philosophies. I put a very interesting compilation or description of these four sampradayas, and in there you can get the skeleton, you can get the outline, the basis of what is Nimbaditya's teachings and what are Vishnu Swami's teachings there. You can get something of the idea of what they propound. Basically, they're propounding the same thing that Madhvacharya was propounding, that it's Vastu, It's Brahm that is transforming, not Shakti. So we understand that from there. But the point that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying here, the point that he's making, is that they are taking the axioms or the principal teachings from the Vedas to support their philosophies. They're taking whatever is necessary to support this philosophy in the sampradayas. Everything has to be supported. The amnaya praha. This is the first principle of this dasmula, that the amnaya, the evidence, has to be there conclusively. Nothing can be built of a firm foundation without solid evidence. So the solid evidence is the Vedas. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining how these personalities in the different sampradaya acharyas, they've taken from the Vedas to support their teachings. This is the principle, what he's saying here. Sri Sankaracharya's Mayavad philosophy is opposed to the basic principles of bhakti because it's not about service to the Supreme. Each of the Vaishnavacharyas has claimed that his principles are based on bhakti. Yes, this is a distinction between Sankaracharya and the four sampradayas. It's bhakti, the consideration of devotion. Although there are differences between the various philosophies that they taught, yes, there was variance in the philosophy that they propounded. But in principle, the mood of service to Krishna was there within each of the sampradayas. This was consistent. So this is important to just accept and appreciate. Therefore, these sampradayas are bona fide sampradayas. The Sri Sampradaya, the Madhava, Brahma Madhava Sampradaya, the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya or the Rudra Sampradaya, and the Kumara Sampradaya, the Nimbaditya Sampradaya. They are bona fide because they propound bhakti, but still they need further purification, which is the gift, again, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to all the Sampradayas. Sriman Mahaprabhu accepted all the Vedic conclusions with due respect and gave their essence in his own instruction. So he took from each of the sampradayas two particular teachings. For example, he took from Ramanuja the service to the Vaishnavas, and he took the idea of unalloyed bhakti. This is what Ramanuja propounded. And then I'm reading from this little book, this parikrama book in there on page 36. If you have this little parikrama book, it's giving clearly these philosophies and what Mahaprabhu took. Mahaprabhu took from the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya the defeat of Mayavadism, which was very important. And he took the embodiment of Sri Murti. This is what he took from the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya because he's injecting something else into it. And then the Rudra Sampradaya, this is Shuddha Advaita, purified. This is Vishnu Swami, and Mahaprabhu took the concentration on Krishna, and he took the Rup Rag Marg Bhakti. He took this path of Raganuga Bhakti, is within the Rudra Sampradaya. But understand the difference between what Mahaprabhu was teaching and the Rag Marg that the Rudra Sampradaya was propounding prior to Mahaprabhu. This is prior to Mahaprabhu, that they didn't include the appreciation and understanding of parakya. And without parakya, Rag Marg has no real substance. So again, there's defect in the Rudra Sampradaya. These Sampradayas will give us the fruit of Shuddha Bhakti, but not the higher stages of Rag Marg or Raganuga, and certainly not Braja Prem, which is what Mahaprabhu's come. All of this understanding just accentuates the speciality of Mahaprabhu and his teachings. So in the Kumara Chatusan Sampradaya, Mahaprabhu took shelter of Sri Radha, and he took aspiring for Gopi Prem, but without understanding Parakya Bhav. So this is the distinction between the Kumara. Even though it appears that they were saying the same thing as Mahaprabhu, there was still something that wasn't there. So Mahaprabhu is adding to this. But these are the 8 qualities that Mahaprabhu is taking from the 4 sampradayas. So we should appreciate this. Mahaprabhu and gave their essence in his own instructions. Yes, this is the essence. Mahaprabhu taught the doctrine of Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva, inconceivable difference and oneness. He remained within the sampradaya of Sri Madhvacharya, but still Sriman Mahaprabhu only accepted the essence of Madhvacharya's doctrine. And I've said before that Mahaprabhu, he remained in the sampradaya of Madhvacharya because Madhvacharya's sampradaya was the most popular at the time. Mahaprabhu had a message. He needed a casing, so to speak, a society, a sampradaya, where to place the teaching. He wasn't going to break the dharmic conception of the sampradayas. The sampradayas have such great value for the conditioned jiva. But he was making an addition to the sampradaya of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya sampradaya. This is where Mahaprabhu sat because it was the most popular at the time, and he could spread his teachings through this channel of the Brahma Madhva sampradaya. Brajanath, what is the doctrine of Parinamvad, transformation? Yeah, good question. Brajanath wants to know, what is this idea of what is it that's transforming? Because this idea of transformation cannot be there within Sankaracharya's philosophy because there was only one. How could one transform into the Jiva and Krishna? It was all in one, Advaita. But Brajanath is asking, what is the nature of this parinam? What is this transformation? What is transforming? Babaji, there are two kinds of parinamvad. Brahm parinamvad, the doctrine of transformation of Brahm. This is like Vastu parinamvad. This is what the Sampradayas previously held to prior to Mahaprabhu. And Tat Shakti parinamvad. This Shakti parinamvad that I've been explaining. The teaching of transformation of energy. We've just said, coming from Swarup Shakti to Chit Shakti, Jiva Shakti, Jiva Tatastha Shakti. Those who believe in Brahm Parinamva, the transformation of Brahm, say that the Achintya, inconceivable, and Nirvishesh, formless Brahm, transforms itself into both living beings and their inert material world, and the inert material world. So all of these they're considering are. I've said it yesterday. I was saying that this word Brahm sometimes signifies directly Krishna. It sometimes signifies all of creation in existence, the complete Tat. It sometimes indicates just the Brahma Jyoti. It can have different meanings according to the context. But in principle, it means the Supreme Lord. When we say Brahm, in this context, it's talking about Krishna. So this Brahm Parinam Vad means that Krishna is transforming. Vastu Parinam Vad is how it's also done. Vastu, Krishna is the three Vastus, Krishna, the Jiva, and Maya. So this Krishna is transforming. Brahm Parinam Vad. Brahm transforms itself into both living beings and the inert material world. Yes, it's that Brahm, that Vastu, that is transforming. To support this belief, they quote from the Chandogya Upanishad 6.2.1, Ekam evadvityam, evadvityam. Before the manifestation of this universe, there existed only the absolute truth, a non-dual tattva that exists in truth. So prior, there was only that one Brahm, and now it's transformed into the Jiva and inert matter. According to this Vedic mantra, Brahm is the one and only Vastu, which we should accept. This theory is also known as non-dualism or Advaitavad. Look, in this theory, the word parinam, progressive transformation, is used, but the actual process that it describes is in fact vikar, destruction, or deformation. It's not bringing in the personality significantly of Krishna. It's not representing Krishna's energy. There's a deficiency here. And this um, uh, progressive transformation. I'll read this again. Look, in this theory, the word parinam, progressive transformation, this is what parinam means. It's evolving, transformation, is used. But the actual process that it describes is in fact vikar, destruction or deformation. So it's not describing the manifestation of Jiva and Krishna and the sambandha, the relationship between the two. It's actually bringing it back to one again. So it's not pure. Those who teach transformation of energy, Shakti Parinamvad, do not accept any sort of transformation in Brahm. It's not Krishna who's transforming. It's not Vastu. We've said this before, so I think everyone's familiar with it now. Rather, they say that the inconceivable Shakti or potency of Brahm is transformed. Shakti Parinamvad, saying it again and again. The Jiva Shakti portion of the potency of Brahm transforms into the individual spirit souls. Yes, the Jiva Shakti, which is coming from Chit Shakti, which is coming from Swarup Shakti. This is what is transforming into the spirit souls. So there's Parinam there. The spirit Jiva transforms into the individual spirit Jivas, and the Maya Shakti portion transforms into the material world. Is this Maya Shakti is coming from Swarup Shakti, and that's what manifests the material world. According to this theory, there is parinam, transformation, but not of Brahm. I hope everyone is able to keep up with this. It's complex and it's not complex at the same time. It's actually incredibly simple if we just focus and can appreciate this distinction between Brahm and Shakti, Krishna and his energy, which we've discussed extensively in the 14th chapter. So it's a carry on. We're using our knowledge from the 14th chapter to understand this now. Sa tattvato jnata buddhya vikar iti udarita. Sadananda's Vedanta Sutra, Sadananda's Vedanta Sar 59. The word vikar, modification, means that something appears to be what it is factually not. So if there is vikar in Brahm, it means that it's not factual. It means it's making an imaginary situation. It's not the reality. We are so lucky to have Bhaktivinoda Thakur walk us through this very clearly. I don't know that there is any other scripture that describes quite so conclusively the conceptions that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is presenting here. They're very profound and clear. And when we hear these conceptions, when we read these conceptions, and then we find, like, what is the effect of hearing and reading these descriptions, is that something of a higher nature is inspired in the consciousness. Our consciousness is definitely opened to accepting the greater reality of this situation, this world where we live. What is transcendence? What is the material energy? Who am I, the jiva, in relationship to both? So it's embellishing, it's rising our consciousnesses. Brahm is accepted as a vastu, a basic substance. We've said it a number of times. Vastu parinava, from which two separate products appear, namely the individual souls and the material world. The appearance of substances that are different in nature from the original substance is known as vikar, modification. There's a difference there. From the one substance, when two are produced, there's a difference. But actually, the truth that we're going to hear is that there is no difference between the Jiva and Krishna ultimately, because both constituted of the Chit Shakti. So this vikar, this transformation of Brahm, is incorrect. The Jiva has his own independent existence, has own independent, existence. It'll be described. I would appreciate any feedback of questions, etc., if someone's not understanding this, because I feel I'm understanding it quite clearly. I hope I'm able to explain it as I'm understanding it. What is a vikar, modification? And Babaji is going to explain this clearly. How can Brahm have vikar? It is just something appearing to be what it is actually not. Yes, I just said an imagination, an illusion. This vikar within Brahm is an illusion. For example, milk is transformed into yogurt. And we know that yogurt cannot be transformed back into milk. We understand this. So milk is a transformation of, or rather, yogurt is a transformation of milk. It's transformed to be completely something different from milk. But the jiva is not in that category. Although yogurt is milk, it is called yogurt. And this yogurt is the vikar or modification of the original substance. In this case, milk. It's the transformation of milk, yogurt. According to Brahm Parinamvad, the material world and the jivas are the vikar of Brahm. So we are the transformation, like the milk transforming into the yogurt, of Brahm. But this is not going to be the case. Without any doubt, this idea is absolutely impure for the following reasons. Those who put forward this theory accept the existence of only one substance, namely the Nirvishesh Brahm. They're only considering the one. Again, it's like Advaitavad. It's just considering the one, but with some, they call it vikar, this modification. But this is not pure, because actually the jiva has his separate existence. Without any doubt, this idea is absolutely impure for the following reasons. Those who put forward this theory accept the existence of only one substance, namely Nirvishesh Brahm. But how can this Brahm be modified into a second substance if nothing else exists apart from it? If there's only that Brahm, how can it transform? The theory itself does not allow for modification of Brahm. Babaji is so astute and erudite, and these Vedic teachings are so clear and beautiful and profound. And this is demonstrating our position in this world. Accepting modification of Brahm defeats or defies logic. If you've only got one, how can that one manifest into two? You have to have the energy. You see, the energy of the one can manifest other energies, individual energies. That's the jiva ultimately. Accepting modification of Brahm defies logic, which is why Brahm Parinamvad is not reasonable under any circumstances. However, there is no such fault in Shakti Parinamvad. So previously, the Sampradayas, they accepted this Vastu, that Krishna was transforming into the jivas, into the Mayic world. This is what they all accepted. This is what we've said repeatedly from the very beginning, that they were accepting the Vastu Parinamvad, that Krishna is transforming. But actually, it's not Krishna, it's his energy. Then his energy, Krishna is one, but then he has energy, and that energy has personality and form, potency, and that potency has the ability to transform, not to transform, but to manifest the jivas. Bhagavan's inconceivable Shakti that makes the impossible possible, Agatana Gatana Pratyasya Shakti, has an atomic particle which is transformed at some places as the individual souls, and it also has a shadow portion. So there's two coming from this Shakti. There's the shadow portion, which we're going to hear is the Maya, material external energy, and there's the Jiva, which is transformed in other places into the material universes. This is the shadow. I hope everyone's able to follow nicely. When Brahm desired, let there be living entities, the Jiva Shakti, part of the superior potency, Para Shakti, Radharani Shakti Tattva, Swarup Shakti, is fulfilling all of Krishna's desires. He desired for there to be many jivas. He desired for these worlds. And Shakti Tattva, his energy, will fulfill that. It's sublime. It's incredibly beautiful. Immediately produced innumerable souls. Shakti Tattva. Similarly, when Brahm desired the existence of the material world, the Maya potency, the shadow form of Parashakti, at once manifested the unfathomable inanimate material world. Brahm accepts these changes while remaining free from change itself. That form of the Lord accepts these changes, but he's not changing himself. Previously, they had the practically Mayavad conception that Krishna changes himself. But Krishna doesn't change. There's no vikar, there's no transformation in Krishna. This was actually described in the 14th chapter, right at the very beginning. There's no vikar in the Supreme Lord. There's no transformation. He doesn't transform. His Shakti does. I've got no one with me today, so I'm just speaking to my reflection in the camera and imagining all you sitting out there, but I have no sort of confirmation or acknowledgement that you're understanding or you have any questions or etc. But anyway, I'm just going ahead like this. So Brahm accepts these changes while remaining free from change itself. One may argue, desiring is itself a transformation. So how can this transformation occur in the desireless Brahm? Understand? That desire itself appears to be a transformation. If someone has that desire, this is what he's saying, is itself a transformation. Babaji is going to purify this. The answer is that the answer to this is you are comparing the desire of Brahm to the desire of the jivas and calling it vikar, modification. This is a great mistake that the jivas philosophically often make, that they put their own minuscule intelligence and philosophies over the Supreme Lord's most potent power of this agatana, pariyasya, shakti, this inconceivable energy. Now the jiva is an insignificant. Yes, you are comparing the desire of Brahm to the desire of the jiva and calling it a vikar, modification. Now the jiva is an insignificant shakti, and whenever he desires, that desire comes from contact with another shakti. For this reason, the desire of the jiva is called vikar. So the jiva's desire has to come in contact with another energy for it to manifest. However, the desire of Brahm is not in that category. In other words, the jiva is limited. Krishna is unlimited. When we take the unlimited nature and the achintya bheda abheda consideration in relationship to Krishna, then he can manifest this, whereas the jivas cannot. Again, it's the distinction between the jiva being infinitesimal and Krishna being purna, supreme and great. However, the desire of Brahm is not in this category. This is not the desire of Brahm. The independent desire of Brahm is part of its intrinsic nature. It is one with the Shakti of Brahm, and at the same time different from it. Krishna's Shakti and Krishna himself are described like musk and its scent, or heat and fire. Fire and heat, you can't really separate them. You cannot separate them. They're one intrinsically. There is an origin of the independent fire, and there is the heat, which is dependent on the fire. But still there is one principle, which is the origin. And from that origin is coming the energy. Therefore, the desire of Brahm Oh, I just read. The independent desire of Brahm is part of its intrinsic nature. That's like fire, independent. It is one with the Shakti of Brahm, and at the same time different from it. It's one with the energy, like the musk and its scent, yet at the same time it is different, like the candle. The candle, we have the flame, and then we have the heat from the flame. Essentially, they're both the same. They're both a candle, but we can separate them to understand, to see the distinction between the origin and the energy. This is what we're talking about. Therefore, the desire of Brahm is the Swarup of Brahm, and there is no place for vikar. There's no place for transformation of Brahm. Krishna is not transforming. When Brahm desires, Shakti becomes active, and only Shakti is transformed. Shakti is transforming, not Krishna. Shakti Parinamvad, not Vastu Parinamvad. This subtle point is beyond the discriminating power of the jiva's minute intelligence, and it can only be understood through the testimony of the Vedas. Yes, don't try and understand it too much. Just hear clearly what we've said. There's no transformation in Brahm, in Krishna, but there's the vikar, or the transformation, appears in Krishna's energy. It's the energy that is transforming Krishna. At the same time, it is Krishna, but distinctly it's not. It's his energy. This is why it's called achintya. This is why we can't properly, um, uh, with our mundane intelligence, understand it, so to speak. What I've said so often, we're trying to appreciate these truths. Minute, and can only be understood through the testimony of the Vedas. That means accepted with Sharanagati of the Vedas. Now we must consider the Parinam transformation of Shakti. Wonderful question. Now, where is this transformation within Shakti? We said there's no transformation in Brahm himself, like in the fire. He's not transforming. His energy is coming, and it's his energy that is transforming. So Brajnath is asking about how is that transformation in Shakti taking place. The analogy of milk changing into yogurt may not be the best example to explain Shakti Parinamvad. Material examples do not give a complete understanding of spiritual principles, but they can still enlighten us regarding certain specific aspects. We're taking shelter of words and language to understand something or to appreciate more deeply this topic. The Chintamani gem is a material object that can produce many varieties of jewels, but it is not transformed or deformed itself in any way. The Chintamani gem doesn't transform. There's no vikar. It just manifests these jewels. That's like the fire. There's no change in the fire when it's manifesting the heat. Sri Bhagavan's creation of this material world should be understood as being something similar to this. As soon as Bhagavan desires, his Achintya Shakti, inconceivable potency, creates innumerable universes of 14 planetary systems and worlds where the jivas can live, but he himself remains absolutely unchanged. This encourages our greatest respect for the Lord. It's not him that is changing, it's his Shakti that is changing always. It should not be understood that this untransformed Supreme is nirvishesh, formless, and impersonal. On the contrary, this Supreme is the great and all-encompassing substance, Brahm, Brihat Vastu Brahm. He is eternally Bhagavan, the master of the six opulences. If one accepts him as merely nirvishesh, one cannot explain his spiritual Shakti. The Mayavadis can't explain his Shakti Tattva. By his Achintya Shakti, he exists simultaneously in both personal and impersonal forms. Krishna represents the impersonal form. In the beginning of the 7th chapter, I think it is, Arjun, he asked this question: should we focus on the impersonal or should we focus on bhakti? And then Krishna begins to explain the bhakti sequence from this point. But he says that this impersonal path is very difficult. He doesn't say it's not true. It's just very difficult to achieve through that practice. He exists simultaneously in both personal and impersonal forms. To suppose that he is only nirvishesh is to accept only half the truth without fully understanding. His relationship with the material world is described in the Vedas using the instrumental, the karana case, to signify by which, the ablative, apadan, apadan case to signify from which, and the locative, adhikarana case to signify in which. So these questions, in which, of which, how which, this means that there has to be personality there. It can't be impersonal. It is stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad 3.1.1, Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yat prayantya abhisamvishanti, tad vignyashava tad brahm. One should know that Brahm is he from whom all living beings are born, by whose power they remain alive, and into whom they enter at the end. He is the one about whom you should inquire. He is Brahm. So this is a description of the Brahm that we've been describing. But Brahm is everything ultimately. But it's not Brahm that is transforming. In this sloka, yato va imani, the ablative, apadan case, Ishvara, for Ishvara is used when it is said that the living beings are manifested from him. That's a personality. Yena, which is the instrumental karana case, is used when it is said that all sentient creatures live by his power. So it's all dependent on the Supreme. And yat, which indicates the locative, adhikarana case, is used when it is said that all living beings enter into him at the end. So the principle is that the Supreme Lord is the origin. These three symptoms show that the absolute truth is supreme. This is his unique feature. This is why Bhagavan is always savishesh, possessing form, qualities, and pastimes. Srila Jiva Goswami describes the Supreme Person in these words: Ekam eva param tattvam svabhavakir chintya shaktya sarva daiva swarupatad rupa vaibhava jiva pradhan rupena chatur dva vashiste suryanta mandala sta teja iva mandala tad bahir tad rashmi tad prati chavi rupena. The absolute truth is one. His unique characteristic is that he is endowed with inconceivable potency, through which he is always manifested in four ways. 1. Swarup, as his original form. 2. Tad Rup Vaibhav, as his personal splendor, including his abode and his eternal associates, expansions, and avatars. 3. Jivas, as the individual spirit souls. And 4. Pradhan, as the material energy. These four features are likened to the interior of the sun planet, the surface of the sun's rays emanating from this surface, and a remotely situated reflection, respectively. So this verse encapsulates everything. So today, I think we'll stop on this verse, and tomorrow we can reiterate this. But I think we've really, we perhaps got time for this last paragraph, and that'll conclude something of this section. But I'll refresh it again also. These examples only partially explain the absolute truth. His original form is Sat Chit Ananda, full of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, and his spiritual name, abode, associates, and the entire paraphernalia in his direct service are opulences that are non-different from himself, Svarup Vaibhav. The countless Nitya Mukta and Nitya Bada Jivas are dependent, conscious atoms, Anuchit. Pradhan includes Maya Pradhan, and its products are the entire gross and subtle material worlds. These four features exist eternally and similarly. The oneness of the Supreme Absolute is also eternal. How can these two eternal contradictions exist together? If one is these contradictions, that one is the Supreme and the other is the energy of the Supreme, the answer is that it seems impossible to the limited intelligence of the jiva, but it is only possible through Bhagavan's inconceivable energy. This is why it's called achintya, inconceivable, oneness and difference. So today we've discussed something of Parinamvad. We've discussed something of the manifestation or the proposition that Vastu Parinamvad, transformation of Brahm, is not logical. Babaji has cleared that. And he's also established that this Parinam, Shakti Parinam, is the principle, that it's the Shakti, the energy, that is transforming. This is logical and makes complete sense for the jiva to appreciate. There's no fault in Shakti Parinamvad, because we're giving the example like of the fire and the heat, etc. It's the heat that is the energy of the fire, and that is transforming. So many truths are here today. I said at the beginning this was a dense chapter, and we can appreciate to our capacity what we've read. If you're reading for the first time or hearing for the first time, we have to read many times, hear many times. And tomorrow, during the day, many of these thoughts will come back to us, and they will become momentary realizations of these truths. And there'll be a great satisfaction in, or pleasure derived from understanding these truths clearly, to assist in our unadulterated devotion to the Lord. It is only about this devotion to the Lord, this bhakti of the Lord towards the Lord, that we are developing and cultivating. Only by devotion. Bhaktyamam abhijananti yavan yaschasmi tatvataha. I said this at the very beginning today, that this devotion to the Supreme Lord is the only method to connect with Him. So by hearing these topics about His creation, it's inspiring us more towards our devotion towards Him. So don't be confused with the various terminologies, etc. And don't be bogged down with trying to understand logically these presentations, but try to pray to have the humility to accept these truths and have no doubts in the consciousness about it. The doubts have to come out to be cleared. So if you have doubts, then you have to reconcile them from this Shastra. So tomorrow, Brajanath is going to ask, what is Vivartavad? So Vivartavad is the illusion. So today we've talked about Parinamvad, which is the transformation of energy, not Brahm. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva ki jai. Thank you for your patience today. I hope you've gained as much as I have gained from reading it and discussing it. It's I feel tremendously inspired by just hearing these truths to assist in my devotion to that supreme, most personal form of the Lord, not impersonal. It's purifying any impersonal remnant that might still be there in the consciousness by appreciating this, because the Shakti aspect, that means there has to be two. If there's two, it's not Advaita, it's not one. So with the Shakti consideration, everything becomes personal. And then we can develop a personal relationship with the Lord. That is the only thing that's going to satisfy the heart, this personal relationship with the Lord. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. We're going to start today on page 409. But just to drop back for a second to 406, just to clarify if there was any misunderstanding or not clear, because it was very dense yesterday what we were discussing. We were discussing Brahm Parinamvad initially, and the question Brajanath asks, it was about parinam. Parinam means transformation. That's what the word means. Parinam means transformation. So Brahm Parinamvad was rejected by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Brahm means Krishna, everything connected with Krishna. It means the supreme whole. I said this at the beginning, that the word Brahm is going to be in different context, understood differently. So Brahm Parinamvad means that Krishna himself is transforming himself into this creation, into the worlds. And this is erroneous. And I just want to recap that part explicitly so that we're all fully conversant with this truth fully. So on page 406, on the second paragraph down, Rajna asks, what is vikar? Babaji is answering rhetorically. He says, what is vikar? It is just something appearing to be what it actually is not. This is vikar also means transformation, change, like parinam means change. For example, milk is transformed into yogurt. Although yogurt is milk, it is called yogurt. And this yogurt is the vikar or modification. So we can say, for simplicity, vikar is modification. It's similar to transformation but modification. And the original substance in this case is milk. Now, this part I want to reiterate. According to the Brahm Parinamvad, the material world and the jivas are the modification or vikar of Brahm. Krishna himself is modifying to become the jivas and this world. Without any doubt, this idea is absolutely impure for the following reasons. Those who put forward this theory accept the existence of only one substance, namely the Nirvishesh Brahm. They're not accepting all the variegated aspects of the Lord, qualities, form, etc. They're just imagining this is just Nirvishesh Brahm that is transforming, that is modifying into this world. How can this Brahm be modified into a second substance? This is the point. How can this singular Brahm, this Nirvishesh Brahm they imagine, be modified, be changed into a separate substance if nothing else exists apart from it? If there's only that Nirvishesh Brahm, how can it be manifest as something else? Where is something else coming from? The theory itself does not allow for modification of Brahm. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is conclusively purifying this apasiddhanta, in fact. This Brahm Parinamvad is not supported by Shastra. It's a very important point because all of these sampradayas, they hovered was exemplified, but they hadn't understood this Shakti Parinamvad, which is what we discussed yesterday. So it's the Shakti is making all the effects of the sun. It's not the sun itself, it's the heat of the sun that is creating the effects. So it's Shakti that is creating these effects. So we have to appreciate this. And then yesterday we reached page 409 and we discussed the beautiful verse that Jiva Goswami gives, and where he describes this unique characteristic of the absolute truth in 4 features. Very powerful verse. I'm going to read the translation one more time. The absolute truth is one. His unique characteristics is that he's endowed with inconceivable potency. It's inconceivable, as we've said so many times, through which he is always manifested in 4 ways. 1. Swarup, in his original form. 2. Tadrup Vaibhav, his personal splendor, including his abode and his eternal associates, expansions, and avatars. 3. Jivas, as the individual spirit souls. And 4. Pradhan, as the material energy. So these 4 aspects. are there manifesting from the absolute truth. These four features are likened to the interior of the sun planet. The interior of the sun planet is Suryadev's abode. It's different from the rest of the planet in one sense. The surface of the sun planet, the sun rays emanating from the surface, again, there's a distinction, and a remotely situated reflection, respectively. So these four distinctions about the absolute reality just make it very much more simple for us to understand, not to understand, but to get some sort of a picture of why we are here, how we got here, what is our environment here. All of this inspires the heart with great reverence and veneration for that personality who has manifested this entire creation. It takes our shraddha much, much deeper by understanding or hearing these topics repeatedly. These examples only partially explain the absolute truth. His original form is Satchidananda, full of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, and his spiritual name, abode, associates, and the entire paraphernalia in his direct service are opulences that are non-different from himself. His opulences are non-different from himself. Swarup Vaibhav. The countless Nitya Mukta and Nitya Bada Jivas are dependent conscious atoms, Anuchit. Those are in the rays emanating. Pradhan includes Maya Pradhan, and its products are the entire gross and subtle material worlds. When we hear these truths, it's just like hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. It just creates the desire for mercy from that Supreme Person to understand, to how to inspire this devotion in the heart to that Supreme Person. These four features exist eternally, and similarly, the oneness of the Supreme Absolute is also two eternal contradictions exist together. The answer is that it seems impossible to the limited intelligence of the jiva, and it is only possible through Bhagavan's inconceivable energy. So again, the jiva has to submit and appreciate his limited material intelligence. But if we accept our limitations, but we are very eager to render service to that Supreme Lord, then he will give us the required ability to appreciate these subject matters much deeper. This is our goal. This is our path. Our focus is attaining the mercy of the Lord to come to the Lord in devotion. This is what we are praying for. All our acharyas are praying for this devotion to manifest in the heart. We've just said in the last verse of this Falshruti, this Amala Prem Seva, this is the prayojan, this service to the Supreme Lord. So now today we're coming to this subject matter. Rajanath, what is Vivartavad? So we've heard what is Brahm Parinam and what is Shakti Parinam. These two words are described on the sheet we sent on the WhatsApp yesterday very clearly. So now we come to Vivartavad, and to understand this. It's important to understand this because this is the platform of the Mayavadis. And if we understand their platform and understand how to purify that platform, then we can be strong representatives of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this world. And for our own purification, have no doubts about the Savishesh, or the personal path to the Lord in devotion. And then, therefore, understand the nature of Braja Prem, Braja Dham, this Dham, Madhurya Dham. It's not entirely so easy, but these doubts and our ignorances have to be purified and dispelled. Babaji, there is some reference to Vivartavad in the Vedas, but that is not Vivartavad. So there's a reference to it, but it's not the Vivartavad that's been spoken of here, which is Mayavad. Vivartavad means Mayavad. Sri Sankaracharya has interpreted the word Vivarta in such a way that Vivartavad has come to mean the same as Mayavad. Mayavad. The scientific meaning of the word Vivart is to atatovato nyata buddhya vivartam iti uda krita. Sadananda Vedanta Sar 49. Vivart is the influence of mistaking one thing for another. The jiva is an atomic spiritual substance, but when he is bewildered, he imagines chapters. The bewilderment is ignorance. Ignorance. So studying these topics is dispelling that ignorance, born of lack of knowledge, and it is the only example of Vivartavad found in the Vedas. Only example of Vivarta found in the Vedas. Someone may think, I am Brahmana, Ramanath Pandeya, the son of the Brahmana Sanatan Pandeya. And another may think, I am the sweeper, Madhua, son of sweeper, Harkua. But really, such thoughts are completely illusory. Our material identities are completely illusory. The jiva is an atomic spiritual spark and is neither Ramanath Pandey nor the sweeper Madhua. It only seems to be so because he identifies with the body. As much as we identify the body, that much we are in illusion. The illusions of mistaking a rope for a snake and seeing silver in the reflection of a conch shell are similar examples. When we see the rope and we consider it a snake, it's an illusion. It's not actually a snake, it's a rope. But in our illusion, we're thinking it's a snake. And the silver reflection of a conch shell, it's not silver, it's a reflection. So similarly, this reflection of my vision, thinking, considering that this body, and it's so thick, it's such a deep conception, this mayic covering that we have. We've said before that Lord Brahma, he puts these 5 coverings over the jiva, over his pure ego when he first comes into this world, so that he can enjoy matter. He hungrily wants to enjoy the material energy. And it's in the 12th chapter of the 3rd canto, verse 2. We've described this a number of times. They're called nascent engagements. He covers the jiva by the illusion that he cannot understand this world. He's bewildered by his situation. Fear of death is there, covering the jiva. He's afraid of death. He's afraid of losing this material body, which is an illusion anyway. But he's afraid of losing it. He becomes, because of his attachment to it. We have this verse, Bhayam dvitiya biniveshatam syat, that fear arises due to material absorption. So if I'm materially absorbed in my body, then I'm going to be fearful of losing my body. I'm going to be attached to that. And then he gives this anger after frustration. We become frustrated with fulfilling our various material desires and fall into the pits of these lower degrees of anger. And then this idea of false possession. We are thinking that this is my object, belongs to me. We're relating it with the illusory material body. So all these bewilderments, Lord Brahma, he covers the jiva with right at the very beginning. He doesn't like to do that. He gives up that body. He asks Krishna, I feel unhappy with putting this covering over the jiva, but still the jiva has to be covered because his desire is so strong to try and enjoy matter. So understand, when we are in knowledge of our situation, our predicament, then surely it's easier for us to disentangle ourselves from it once we have the clarity of my position here. The illusions, yes. The Vedas use various examples to try to convince the jivas to become free from this vivart, to become free from this illusion, the illusion of identifying oneself with this mayic body. So the Vedas, of course, are filled with directives to become freed from this illusion. Mayavadis reject the true conclusions of the Vedas and establish a rather comical theory of Vivartavad. Now listen carefully. They say that the idea, I am Brahm, I am that Supreme Lord, is essential understanding, and the idea, I am a jiva, is Vivarta. So I am actually God, but this is illusion that I'm thinking I'm the body. You understand? That's how they think. This is Vivartavad, this is Mayavad. Erroneous understanding. The Vedic examples of Vivarta do not contradict Shakti Parinambad. Everything about Shakti Parinambad, that Shakti is transforming. Krishna's energy is transforming into the jivas. This is pure. Vedic examples of Vivarta do not contradict Shakti Parinambad at all. But the theory of Vivartavad, the Vedic examples of Vivart, illusion, do not contradict Shakti Parinamvad. So it's a very subtle understanding. Do not contradict Shakti Parinamvad at all. But the theory of Vivartavad that the Mayavadis put forward is simply foolish. The Mayavadis propose various types of Vivartavad, of which three are most common. 1. The soul is really Brahm, that means the Supreme, but he became bewildered into thinking himself to be an individual soul. This is an illusion that I'm this soul. That means I don't have an ultimate relationship with that Supreme Soul. It's a horrible philosophy. 2. The jivas are reflections of Brahm. 3. The jivas and the material world are just the dream of Brahm. So this is the concoction that Sankaracharya has used under the order of Krishna to bewilder those atheistic people who wanted to exploit the path of bhakti. It'll be explained. All these varieties of Vivartavad are false and contrary to Vedic evidence. Rajanath, what is this philosophy called Mayavad? I am unable to understand it. So he wants to understand it so he can be completely purified of any taint of that or contamination by that. Babaji, listen carefully. Listen carefully. Maya Shakti is the shadow of Swarup Shakti. It has no entrance into the spiritual kingdom, and it is the controller of the material world. Maya Devi has two aspects. We know there is Yoga Maya that is operating in the spiritual world, and there's Mahamaya that is operating in this world. And they're both serving the Lord. And this Maya Shakti is serving the Lord to keep the conditioned souls in illusion until he's purified sufficiently to recognize that Krishna is the object of devotion, not himself. This conditioned world is called the perverted reflection. It's perverted because the perversion is that I am simply focusing on myself at every single step of the day. I'm only thinking about me, situation, my happiness, my unhappiness, my hunger, my thirst, my satisfaction. It's only focusing on me. It's the most selfish mentality. But when that begins to purify in the association of saintly devotees, of Vaishnavas, of Guru, then the ghastly selfishness starts to become purified. And I start to look out at the world with great affection and compassion. Compassion will come in the heart of the jiva at that time, and he will want to assist other conditioned jivas out of this predicament. That's the path of the Vaishnava. When the jiva is overpowered by ignorance and illusion, he enters that material world. Spiritual things have no independent existence and are independently energetic. Sorry, I said that wrong. I thought that was wrong. Spiritual things have an independent existence, completely opposite to what I just said. Spiritual things have an independent existence. We've talked about the independence of the jiva, which gets him in all this trouble, it seems. But the jiva is independent, an independent existence, and are independently energetic, because Krishna is independent. But Mayavad does not accept this. That's interesting. The Mayavads don't accept the independent aspect of the jiva. We think that we're connected with that Supreme Lord by illusion that was put there by the Lord, and we don't have any independence in this, in rectifying our situation. But Mayavad does not accept this. Instead, the Mayavad theory declares that the individual soul is itself Brahm. The individual soul is itself God, and only appears to be different from Brahm because of the influence of Maya. They consider this is an illusion, that I'm different from God. We are a part of God. We're called Vibhinamsa. Vibhin means separated. We are a separated part of Krishna. So it's a very subtle concept that we need to appreciate deeply. Declares that the individual soul is itself Brahm and only appears to be different from Brahm because of the influence of Maya. This theory states that the jiva only thinks himself to be an individual entity, and that the moment the influence of Maya is removed, he understands that he is Brahm. And I've told you the example before of one yogi who went through his meditation and saw in a blue pearl a little boy, blue boy, and he thought, oh, that is me. That is the final illusion. Understands that he is Brahm. According to this conception, while under the influence of Maya, the atomic spiritual spark has no independent identity separate from Maya, and therefore the way of liberation for the jiva is nirvana. This is the Buddhistic direction, which is what Sankaracharya also propagated, because he wanted to purify that conception with the support of the Shastras. We've said before that the Lord Buddha, he pushed the Shastras out of India because he wanted to establish this philosophy of ahimsa, this non-violence. According to this conception, while under the influence of Maya, the atomic spiritual spark has no independent identity separate from Maya, and therefore the way of liberation for the jiva is nirvana, or merging in Brahm. Mayavadis do not accept the separate existence of pure individual soul. Furthermore, they state that Bhagavan is subordinate to Maya and has to take shelter of Maya when he needs to come to this material world. They say this is because Brahm is impersonal and does not have any form, which means that he has to assume a material Mayic form in order to manifest himself in this world. His Ishvara aspect has a material body. The avatars accept material bodies and perform wonderful feats in this material world. In the end, they leave their material body in this world and return to their abode. So this is completely erroneous. Mayavadis show a little kindness towards Bhagavan, for they accept some difference between the jiva and the avatars of Ishvara. The distinction they make is that the jiva has to accept a gross body because of his past karma. This karma carries him away, even against his wishes, and he is forced to accept birth, old age, and death. The Mayavadis say that Ishwara's body, designation, name, and qualities are also material, but that he accepts them of his own accord, and that whenever he desires, he can reject everything and regain his pure spirituality. He is not forced to accept the reactions resulting from the activities that he performs. These are all misconceptions of the Mayavadis. understand all this. They believe Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving some concession here, because they say when the avatars accept a body, they are not subjected to karma. And that's a fact. Bhagavan himself is never subjected to karma in any time. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving them some credit here. We have to know all of the intricacies of this subject matter, so that whenever necessary, these misconceptions, when they come up, and they won't come up in a philosophical way that is being presented here, but gradually we will have realization of these topics. Rajanath is very important. No, Mayavad cannot be found anywhere in the Vedas. Kal Brahmana, Murti, they were abusing the path of bhakti, asuras. In short, he by polluting the path of devotional service, the path should be freed from this pollution. Thinking thus, he called an asuric person, two aspects of an asuric person. They want to control and they want to create fear around you. We can pick very, very quickly that kind of atmosphere when we come in a fearful situation. Control others rather than spread. Okay. I remain concealed from them. Those it's Mayavad, imagined path. They're following these teachings of Sankaracharya. They don't want to follow the Guru Varga. They still want the original conception that we had from the Brahmajyoti, from the Chit Shakti, when we had in the Tatashta, to be like God, to enjoy this world. This is essentially how this Mayavad has manifested. We want to usurp the position of the Lord for our own indulgence in this world. Sri Mahadev, who is the supreme Vaishnava, was at first somewhat reluctant to accept such an arduous task, and with which Bhagavan had entrusted him. However, considering this to be his order, he therefore preached the Mayavad philosophy. So you see how much of a non-Mayavad is actually Sankaracharya. Even though the task was difficult, any opportunity to serve the Lord, just like drinking the poison from the churning of the ocean of milk, was not a pleasant task for she would perform that activity. Similarly, in the form of Sankaracharya, he took wholeheartedly to this task of convincing the jivas of an authorized path of Mayavad to realize themselves as being God, because that's what they wanted. That's what they were hungry for. And they were disturbing the devotees by using the strength of bhakti to achieve or to try to achieve that end. The path of bhakti was becoming clouded with so many asuric conceptions coming in. So it had to be distinct. So now we as devotees, we talk about the Mayavads. So this is the description of, in Bhagavatam all the way through, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is talking continuously about the Mayavads. The Mayavads are those who want to exploit Krishna's energy for their own satisfaction without serving the Lord. They haven't developed sufficient Sukriti and Sanskar to understand their total insignificance in this world and the greatness of the Lord and their ability to serve the Lord. Sri Mahadev, who is the supreme Vaishnava, was at first somewhat reluctant to accept such an arduous task with which Bhagavan had entrusted him. However, considering this to be his order, he therefore preached the Mayavad philosophy. Where is the fault of Sriman Mahadev? the Supreme Guru in this. The entire universe functions smoothly like a well-oiled machine under the guidance of Bhagavan, who expertly wields in his hand the splendid Sudarshan Chakra for the well-being of all creatures. How beautiful Bhaktivinoda Thakur is writing here. Only he knows what auspiciousness is hidden in his order, and the duty of the humble servants is simply to obey his order, simply to obey the Lord's order. This is the beginning of our devotion, Sharanagat, the beginning. Knowing this, the pure Vaishnavas never find any fault in Sankaracharya, Shiva's incarnation, who preached Mayavad. Listen to the evidence from Shastra for this. Tvam aradye tata shambho grahasyami varam sada dvarpado yuge bhutva kalya manu sadishu. Swagamai kalpitais vancha janam madvi mukam kru mancha gopya yena syat shristir isam is Isan o Tarantara, Padma Purana, Uttarakhand, 4209, 1010, and Narad Pancharatra, 422930. Vishnu said, O Shambhu, although I am Bhagavan, still I have worshipped different devatas and devis to bewilder the asuras. In the same way, I shall worship you as well and receive a benediction. In the same way, I shall worship you as well and receive a benediction. In Kali Yuga, you should incarnate amongst human beings through your partial expansion. You should preach from Shastra like Agama and fabricate a philosophy that will distract the general mass of people away from me and keep me covered. In this way, more and more people will be diverted away from me. My pastimes will become all the more valuable. If the pastimes are just thrown out in the street without proper acknowledgement of the potency of them, without proper understanding of what is the tattva and truth, just like today, if we have sahajiyas who try to exploit for their own pleasure Krishna's pastimes and imagining themselves to be more realized in their soul, and they might imagine what is their sarup and be preaching from a platform which they're not actually on, and therefore this will cause great confusion and great disturbance to the consciousness of the jivas. So we have to be versed clearly in all these truths so we don't fall into any disturbance or confusion. We have to wake up to the situation in the world. It's fraught with dangers, so to speak, of individuals who are preaching apasidantic conclusions. And only by taking shelter of this Jaiva Dharma can we be reassured of the absolute truth. This is the beauty and generosity of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, going to so much trouble for us to write out so clearly these explanations. So we're humbly offering our obeisances again and again to this Shastra of Jaiva Dharma. In Kali Yuga, you should incarnate amongst human beings through your partial expansion. You should preach the Shastra like Agama and fabricate a philosophy that will distract the general mass of people away from me and keep me covered. In this way, more and more people will be diverted away from me, and my pastimes will become all the more valuable. The Varaha Purana, Bhagavan tells Shiva, Esha Moham Srijami Ashu Ye Janam Moha Yishyati Tvancha Rudra Mahashaho Mohon Shastrani Karya Atatyani Vitatyani Dashayaspa Mahabhuja Prakasham Kuru Chat Mana Prakashanka mam kuru. I am creating the kind of illusion, moha, that will delude the mass of people. Strong-armed Rudra, you also create such a deluding Shastra. Krishna's deluding potency was in the form of Buddhism. He had another idea also in manifesting as Lord Buddha, was to curtail the killing of animals. This was very important, but at the same time, he planted the seeds of this Mayavad erroneous conception. Almighty Armed One, present fact as falsehood, and falsehood as one. Amazing description here of Acharya. So we'll just finish this portion. Brajana, is there any Vedic evidence against the Mayavad philosophy? Babaji, all the testimony of the Vedas refutes Mayavad philosophy. The Mayavadis have searched all the Vedas and isolated 4 sentences in their support. They call these 4 sentences Mahavakya, the illustrious statements. These 4 statements are Sarvam Kalo Idam Brahm. All the universe is Brahm. They interpret this to mean you are Brahm and I am Brahm. All the universe is Brahm. They've just taken this one out of the Vedas and they're saying it's all Brahm. You're Brahm and I'm Brahm. This is the Parinam Vad, which is Mayavad or Vivartavad. Pratnanam Brahm. The supreme knowledge is Brahm. This one particular. Yes, it's true that supreme knowledge is Brahm, but we are not a part of Brahm the way that they are presenting it. This is from the Aitatreya Upanishad 153. Tattvam asi Svetkato. O Svetkatu, you are that. Yes, we are that in the sense that we have the same particle. We've discussed this in Jiva Tattva. We are different and non-different to Krishna. We have that same chit spark, but we don't have the quantity whatsoever that the Supreme Lord has. So this sentence has been isolated from the Vedas. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahm. I am Brahm. I am that person himself. I am a part of Brahm. Yes, I have the same independence as Brahm. We've described we have these 10 qualities, the same as Brahm, but in a minuscule way. So the Mayavad has not focused on the huge distinction, difference. He's focused on the similarity and saying that he is God. Ultimately, they want to try and enjoy this world. It's a tragic situation for the conditioned souls. And when we understand this philosophy, we so much want to purify any Mayavad contamination so that the conditioned soul can actually regain his pure Amala Prem Seva. With these, following these apparent Mahavakyas is going to take you to hell. The first Mahavakya teaches existing of the living beings and non-living matter is Brahm. Nothing exists that is not Brahm. The identity of that Brahm is explained elsewhere. Na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. Na tat samash shabhyadikash cha drishyate. Parasya shaktir vivadaiva shuryate. Swabhaviki gyan bala kriya cha. Shveta Upanishad 678. None of the activities of that Parabrahm, Paramatma, is mundane, because none of his senses, such as his hands and legs, is material. Thus, through the medium of his transcendental body, he performs his pastimes without any material senses, and he is present everywhere at the same time. Therefore, no one is even equal to him, what to speak of being greater than him. The one divine potency of Parameshwara has been described in Shruti in many ways, among which the description of his Gyan Shakti, knowledge, and Bal Shakti, power, and his Kriya Shakti, potency for activity, are most important. These are also called Chit Shakti or Sangvit Shakti, Sat Shakti and Sandini Shakti, and Ananda Shakti or Hladini Shakti, respectively. So we'll stop there, and tomorrow we can read again this amazing translation, because we're covering a lot of ground, actually. But we're purifying these misconceptions, and we know why these misconceptions are there in the heart of the jiva, because he wants to exploit matter. And it creates an asuric tendency. It creates a demonic mentality, just like our demonic governments today are only concerned with the exploitation of the populace. It's the same dynamic. And they're trying to get fat off the hard work of the populace generally. They're not like the ancient Raja Rishis, Yudhisthira Maharaj, etc., who had this great benevolence and fatherly mood towards the populace to protect them, to provide for them, to give them all the material facilities for their sojourn in this world, as well as give them guidance in Shastra. But these demonic governments today are completely the opposite. They're just trying to exploit more and more of the people's resources. So this is our situation today. So Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Many points, but we're going quite quickly. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranams. Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Now we're actually on to page 416, but I said yesterday that I wanted to read this last translation on page 415 before we move forward. So, as we've said each time, this is quite a dense chapter. So, because of the terminologies that we're unfamiliar with, because they're not generally spoken about so much in the various classes. So, what we've concluded to date is that this Brahm Parinamvad is Mayavad. It doesn't work. This transformation, Parinam means transformation. That is not logical in connection with the Supreme, Brahm Parinamvad. But Shakti Parinamvad is that Krishna's Shakti is transforming. That just like the sun planet has its heat energy, it's the heat energy that contributes to the whole planet, to the whole universe. It's not the sun planet itself directly, but the heat is coming from the sun planet. And the sun planet itself is fully independent. This is the special characteristic of Shaktiman, of Krishna himself. He has free will and he's fully independent, whereas Shakti is totally dependent on that potency, that origin, that Shaktiman. So Krishna has full independence, whereas Shakti is fully dependent and full of a mood of service, which is the ultimate reality for the jivas, is to discover that mood of, first of all, in their shraddha, their complete nishta and faith towards the Supreme, and then being able to put their focus on just wanting to please him and serve him. It's the same dynamic that Sri Radhika has ultimately, is just to render service to that Supreme. We only want to render service, but we want to render service even just to Radhika, because we realize how much Krishna is attracted to Radhika. And Radhika is the one who is performing all the activities, the Kriya Shakti are all manifesting from Sri Radhika. All the Shaktis, Chit Shakti, then we describe here, it's described. I'll read this translation we read yesterday. No, I was just saying, sorry, I was recapping. So this Brahm Parinamvad is rejected and Shakti Parinamvad is established. And yesterday we talked about Vivart. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining how Vivart is actually mentioned in the Shastra, but not Vivartava. Vivart, this word means illusion. So this Vivart is described about the illusion of the jiva in this world. He's illusioned. But Vivartavad is those who propagate that illusion as being the truth. And this was the axiom, basically, that Mahadev propagated. This Vivartavad, this idea of we are illusioned. Actually, we are that Supreme, but we become illusioned to think that we're not. What happened? we've become illusioned to think that we're not. And then when we wake up to ourselves, we'll realize that we are actually that supreme. So this is completely Mayavad. So this chapter is walking through these Mayavad conceptions very, very clearly, opening them out to reveal to us the depth of what is Mayavad really. And then we had a page or two describing Mahadev himself and his service to Krishna by propagating this. The reason for propagating this, Krishna was saying that these asuras, they wanted to take advantage of the potency within bhakti for their own material desires through bhakti, using the shakti of bhakti for their own material desires. So Krishna didn't want this to happen. So then he asked Sankaracharya, you please make a philosophy that will attract the demons, these personalities who don't want to consider Krishna's form and variety, that actually still want to remain in the idea that I and Krishna are the same, are one. This Mayavad conception. So this is what Sankaracharya agreed to do in service to the Lord. And Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur Babaji, are saying what a great service Sankaracharya actually rendered in doing this for the Supreme, because he wanted to protect the sanctity of the pure path of bhakti. And it's described so his gentle devotees wouldn't be disturbed by this Mayavad conception, that they would know clearly the distinction between Mayavad and bhakti, not blur the edges. So Sankaracharya, he's quoted these four particular Mahavakyas, they're called, and this is what we read yesterday. This Sarvam Kalo Idam Brahm, Prajnanam Brahm, Tattvam Ashi Svetakito, and Aham Brahmasmi. And we've been going through these, and we're just going to go through these today in continuation with where we're reading from. So this is where we've come up to. We're more or less purifying any idea of Mayavad and understanding what is Mayavad, what is this illusion that I am God, but I've forgotten that I'm God. That's the illusion. But understand how deep that is, because in the Tatashta region, I wanted to be God. That was my fervent desire. So Krishna made that arrangement for me to imagine that I was God. How horrible when we consider the glories and speciality and sweetness and potency of direct devotion. If all of us have had some experience of pure devotion, otherwise we wouldn't still be listening to Krishna conscious Katha. All of us, from the very beginning, as soon as we started chanting Hare Krishna, there was some immediate connection with transcendence. Whether we are able to sustain it or not is another thing, but we all had some connection immediately, knowing that I am infinitesimal and Krishna is supreme, and how to connect there. So this is our journey of how to connect in devotion, and our whole lives are just spent in trying to not understand, but trying to practice this anyabilasita shunyam, jnana karmadi anavritam, anukulyena krishna anushilam bhaktya uttama. This is uttam bhakti. And from the very beginning, we're trying to regularly become inspired more in devotion to the Supreme Lord, which means two. There's the Jiva and there's Krishna. Whereas in Mayavad, there's only the one. It's coming back to this Advaitavad. So reading this translation on the bottom of page 415, none of the activities of that Parabrahm, Paramatma, is mundane, because none of his senses, such as his hands and legs, is material. Thus, through the medium of his transcendental body, he performs his pastimes without any material senses, and he is present everywhere at the same time. So he has nothing is material about the Lord. Therefore, no one is even equal to him, what to speak of being greater than him. The one divine potency of Parameshwara has been described in Shruti in many ways, among which the description of his Gyan Shakti, knowledge, His Bal Shakti, power, and his Kriya Shakti, potency for activity, are most important. And all these Shaktis are manifesting from the original Shaktiman, from the original Krishna. But they're not the same as the original Krishna. They're different. They're different. It's like there's a difference. There's a difference between the heat and the fire. The fire is independent. The heat is fully dependent on the fire. So there's a distinction each time. These are also called Chit Shakti or Sangvit Shakti. That's the knowledge potency. Sat Shakti or Sandini Shakti. That's the existence potency. And Ananda Shakti or Hladini Shakti, respectively. So these are the Shaktis, the potencies. So Babaji is substantiating Shakti Parinabhati, that Shakti all the way through. He's saying the same thing. So now at the top of page 416, Brahm, and remember I've said at the very beginning, this Brahm means God, basically, means Krishna, and all his potencies, the Brahmand. That's the complete. It's referred to as Brahm. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada would call it Brahmand, so that we could distinguish. Brahm and his Shakti are accepted as non-different from each other. The heat and the fire are non-different. At the same time, there is distinction. In fact, this Shakti is said to be an inherent part of Brahm, like the heat can be an inherent part of the fire, which is manifested in different ways. From one point of view, it may be said that nothing is different from Brahm, for the potency and the possessor of potency are non-different. Just like the heat and the fire are non-different, musk and its scent are non-different. However, when we look at the material world, we can see that in another sense, Brahm and his Shakti are certainly different. So this is where the aspect of achintya, inconceivable. They're different and yet they're not different. The heat and the fire are different. Of course they're different. But then they're the same, aren't they? You say, oh, there's a fire over there. You're indicating the heat and the fire. You're not saying that there's just the heat over there or just the fire over there. You can't say that. So they are one. At the same time, they can be distinguished as two principles. It's quite simple, really. It's not rocket science. So, however, when we look at the material world, we can see that in another sense, Brahm and his Shakti are certainly different. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam, eko bahunam yo vidadeti karmam. Katha Upanishad 2.13 and Svetashvarta Upanishad 6.10. He is the one supreme eternal being among all eternal beings, and the one supreme conscious being among all conscious beings. He alone is fulfilling the desires of everyone. Everyone means two. It means Brahm and the Jivas. This statement from the Vedas accepts variegatedness within the eternal existing substance, Vastu. Vastu means the eternal existing Brahm. It separates the Shakti, potency, from Shaktiman, the possessor of the potency. And then it considers his Gyan, knowledge, Bal, power, and Kriya, activities. Are you following simply? It's quite simple, really. It's just we have to kind of like accept these conceptions. And it's very wonderful for our devotion, because the next morning, after we've put our concentration and focus into trying to appreciate this, it's like our conception of the Supreme increases, because now we actually have a deeper appreciation of his manifestations, of his energies, etc. So therefore, my relationship with him can be much more progressive, much more easily connected. Huh?
No other scriptures is giving this depth of who is Bhagavan and what is God.
He's saying no other scriptures give this depth in such simple terminologies. Actually, this depth, when we again will read the Srimad Bhagavatam, when we will again look at Chaitanya Charitamrita, we'll see exactly the same principles. And we'll understand them because we've heard them here clearly explained in Jaiva Dharma. So now it's like the lights have gone on. So everything that you read, you can very easily understand. But this Jaiva Dharma is just really making it like so clear. This statement of the Vedas accepts variegatedness within the eternally existent substance, Vastu, Brahm. We talked about Vastu in the very first chapter. It separates the Shakti potency from Shaktiman, the possessor of the potency. And then it considers his Gyan, knowledge, Bal, power, and Kriya activities. Now let us consider the second Mahavakya. So he's going through the Mahavakyas at this stage. The second Mahavakya, Pragyanam Brahm. Supreme knowledge is Brahm. Aitatreya Upanishad 153. Here it is said that Brahm and consciousness are identical. The word Pragyanam, which in this sentence is said to be one with Brahm, is also used in Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad 4.4.21, where it is used to mean Prema Bhakti. It's the same principle. Because remember, this question was asked right in the beginning by Sannyasi Thakur. He's saying, this prem that you're talking about, is that the final conclusion of Advaitavad? He asked that question. Is that Advaita Siddhi is the words that he uses, if you remember? I think it's the second chapter, first chapter, second chapter perhaps. And he's asked, because he's coming from a Brahmagyan school, Vaishnava Thakur, by Sannyasi Thakur. He's coming from that school where for so many years he's just focused on Advaita Vad. So he's asking, is Advaita Siddhi, that oneness, is that the same as Prem? And then Babaji explains, because that Advaita, Advaita Siddhi is the highest in the Brahman line. So he's asking, is that the same as Prem? And Babaji explains, no. That oneness in the Mayavad school or the Advaita school means that you are that one. Whereas the oneness in Prem means you are one in service to that Supreme Lord. It's both one, so the words are the same. So Sankaracharya, he's taken these words out and he's twisted the meaning to make it seem like a Mayavad axiom or Mayavad Mahavakya. You understand? It's brilliant. It's really simple though. When it is used to mean, I just read that again. So he's talking about pragyanam, which in this sentence is said to be one with Brahm. One with Brahm. One with Brahm, according to the Mayavadis, that I am that Brahm. He's going to explain. It also is used in the Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad, where it is used to mean Prema Bhakti. The same one is to mean Prema Bhakti. And this is Tam eva diro vignaya pragyanam kurvita brahmanaha. When a steady and sober person attains knowledge of Brahm, he worships him with genuine loving feelings. Gyan Swarup Prem Bhakti. He doesn't think I am that one. He worships him. Such a distinction. But if you have the desire to be that one, oh, well then Sankaracharya, he's saying like that, then yes, I will try and be that one and imagine myself to be God. And what is the consequence of that? Merging into the Brahmajyoti. Horrific. The third Mahavakya is Tattvam Asi Svetaketo. Oh, Svetaketu, you are that. You are that. Now this is where Mahaprabhu's Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva comes. We are that because we are of the same ultimate quality. We are manifesting from Chit Shakti. And I've said so many example of a spoonful of the ocean. It has the same constitution as the entire ocean. So you can say that the water in the spoon is the same as the ocean, but the difference is vast. So Sankaracharya is not focusing on the difference. He's focusing on the similarity. This shloka gives instructions on oneness with Brahm, which is more elaborately described in Brihat Aranyak Upanishad 3.8.10 as follows. Yova aitad aksharam garye, avidit vashmal lokat praiti sa karpanaha. Ya etad aksharam gargi vidit vasmal lokat praiti sa brahmanaha. O Gargi, those who leave this material world without understanding the eternal Vishnu are Kripana, extremely miserly. Gargi, by the way, is his wife, or Maitreyi, sometimes his wife, Gargi. Extremely miserly or degraded, whereas those who leave this material world in knowledge of that supreme eternal are actually Brahmanas, knowers of Brahm. How beautiful. To know the Lord. And if we're in ignorance, we're Kripanas, we're miserly. The words Tattvam Asi therefore mean, he who gains true knowledge eventually attains devotional service to Parabrahm, and he is to be known as a Brahmana. Conclusive. Babaji is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is just like cutting so expertly with the support of all Shastra. All Shastra is here in this Jaiva Dharma, because without this authentic support, then it's like a Mayavad can get in and make some trickery, or a demon can get in and twist it around to be something else. But when we're holding exclusively to the words of Shastra, you can't turn away. The fourth Mahavakya is Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahm. Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad 1.4.10. If the vidya that is established in this Vakya does not become bhakti in the end, then it is thoroughly condemned in Sri Upanishad 9, which says, so it's saying the same, this if this Vakya doesn't become bhakti in the end, doesn't become devotion, then it's useless. Anandam tasma parvishanti ye vidyam upashyate tato bhuya ivate tamo ya yu vidyayam rataha. Those who are situated in ignorance enter deep darkness, and those who are in knowledge enter deeper darkness still. When I first heard that, I couldn't figure it out. But those who are in knowledge of Brahm, but then consider that they are that Brahm, they go into an even deeper hell. It'll be explained here. This mantra means that those who embrace ignorance and do not know the spiritual nature of the soul enter the darkest regions of ignorance. However, the destination of those who reject ignorance but who believe that the jiva is Brahm not a spiritual atom is far worse. You understand? It's far worse to think that we are that Brahm. That conclusion is far worse.
We came from there.
Huh?
We came from there.
We what?
We came from Brahm, right?
We
So
come
to
from
realize the realization that
yes,
Brahm,
correct. We've come from there.
so
And if we
are that.
huh?
One can say we are Brahm.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about.
Then
So
say,
you can hold that. You can say you're Brahm.
yeah. But then
That's a Mayavad.
yes. But you're saying that's it's into deeper darkness.
It's a deeper darkness if you believe that you are God. If you believe that you are Brahm, then it's an even deeper darkness. Yes, we came from Brahm.
Particle.
We're a particle of the great. But if you believe you are the great, then you go to an even deeper hell.
Very subtle.
Yes, absolutely. All of this is subtle.
Yes.
This requires a lot of concentration and focus to actually pick up all these nuances.
Yes.
It doesn't just drop off the tree. You actually have to pay attention and actually read it Many, many, many times. I was telling one devotee this morning, I probably read this chapter probably 40, 45, 50 times perhaps, spoken it, heard it, taught it, everything. And yet today I'm reading it like I've never read it before in my life, I promise you. I'm just reading these conceptions like, wow, wow. I really didn't understand that previously. Because our levels of comprehension, due to our practice of sadhana, are naturally going to evolve day by day. If they're not evolving, we should become very worried that I'm just sitting on some plateau, that I'm not actually going deeper into these truths. Every single day, my awareness of that Supreme Lord, my relationship with that Supreme Lord must be evolving. It must be getting deeper. If it's not getting deeper, I'm not really doing sadhana. I'm just playing around with the material energy, getting distracted all day long. I'm not really moving ahead. I'm not really focusing. I'm not really looking for those deeper depths of connection with my soul, with the Supreme, in activity to Him. Baba, the Vedas have no shoreline and are unsurpassed. Their precise meaning can only be understood by studying each and every shloka of the Upanishads separately and deriving the meaning from all of them combined. Yes. Sankaracharya took these 4 Mahavakyas, he called, and isolated them from the rest of the context. I am Brahm. But in what context? He didn't connect it with the rest. Unless it's in context with the entirety of the Vedic teachings. And in this Jaiva Dharma, we get the entirety for us. We don't have to read all the Vedas. We've got it all right here. All the pertinent quotes and shlokas are being given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He's done all the work for us. If one singles out a particular sentence, he may always be diverted by some misinterpretation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore investigated all the Vedas thoroughly. Yes, in his life as Nimai Pandit in Navadvip. Why was he acting out that arrogant scholar in Navadvip? Why was he performing that pastime? He was assimilating in that form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, refreshing all his own Vedic teachings. So he is the Supreme, but he was sharpening completely his absorption in the whole Vedic teachings in Navadvip. That's what he did. Nimai, the what he called arrogant scholar, he absorbed all of that in his pastime, in his lila, so that later on, whatever he said was coming from such a profound realization of understanding the entirety of the Vedic teachings, not anything isolated. And his entirety was Raganuga Bhakti and service to Sri Radhika. This is what he was giving. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore investigated all the Vedas thoroughly and then preached that the individual spirit souls and the material world are simultaneously and inconceivably one with Sri Hari and different from him. That's the final conclusion of Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva. Wow. We've actually just run out of time. This is so beautiful, tattva, and what's going to proceed here is also beautiful. I said to you at the very beginning of this chapter, don't be concerned if there's any sort of difficulty in trying to follow the precepts. I said at the beginning, at the end of the chapter, it's like Bhaktivinoda Thakur just has the mystical ability to pull all the strings together in a beautiful, simplified form. And this is what he's beginning to do. First of all, we've purified these Mayavad conceptions. This is what he's just done today. We've gone through each of these 4 Vakyas. This is what we've gone through today, basically. And tomorrow, he's going to go through the actual nature of this Achintya Bhedabheda-tattva, this inconceivable oneness and difference between the Jiva and Krishna. It's such an important point to appreciate. It makes all the difference in our faith, in our worship of the Lord. Because if we're performing sadhana, for example, very rigorously, there will come a time when our consciousness will become illuminated with knowledge. It's a fact. my Gurudev has spoken about two different types of ruchi. The first type of ruchi is when your consciousness begins to wake up and your whole brain is like awake, and you can see, and you can you have so much gyan, and you can start getting a taste for that. You start to get pleasure out of that for yourself. You're enjoying your own knowledge. It's a trap. It's a danger. Many very erudite scholars go into that place and they just remain in that singular world of gyan. They don't utilize that knowledge to connect with the Supreme in bhakti, in devotion. If the devotion is not flourishing, if the current of devotion is not there, then it's useless. Then bhakti hasn't manifested. You understand what I've just said? Yeah? Clearly? Ruchi, two stages. The real stage is when I'm getting that taste from my relationship with Krishna. But it's almost like an illusory taste when I start to understand so much of Shastra and my consciousness becomes illuminated by that taste. And I'm starting to enjoy my own illumination more than my connection with the Supreme. It's another trap. It's subtle. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Don't ever let Jaiva Dharma go. So tomorrow we'll discuss further. We'll hear more. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Okay, we come to page 418, chapter 18, and we've been dismantling these four apparent Mahavakyas that Sankaracharya erected to support his philosophy of Advaitavad. So Krishna requested him to do this. He was doing it on Krishna's order. So that is the extent of his greatness as a Vaishnava. Vaishnavam Yatha Shambhu. This is Shivji, such a great Vaishnava. But if he's ever sort of remotely condemned for doing this onerous seva, erroneous seva, then we have not understood tattva or shastra. He did it in service to the Lord because Krishna wanted the sacred path of bhakti to be protected from the asuras who were exploiting that path of bhakti for their own energy. They were getting energy from performing the rituals of the path of bhakti. They were getting potency from that and then exploiting the path of bhakti. And this was causing disturbances to the devotees. So Krishna could see that. And he requested Sankaracharya to come and make this maya, so they would all be tricked. All the people deep in their hearts who actually wanted to be God, because this is the ultimate conclusion. We've said so many times that the ultimate conclusion is the jiva knowing his infinitesimal nature in comparison to the complete purna chit of Krishna. But that person who doesn't want to actually realize his infinitesimal tiny nature, instead wants to actually usurp that role of Krishna and be like God, then that is the path that he can find that in that Mayavad misconception.
So with Buddha, it's like he wanted them to be nothing. And with Mayavad, he wanted them to believe that they were everything.
Yes, Shunyavad. He's saying that in Buddhistic philosophy, he wanted them to be nothing, which is nirvana, which means you eliminate your spiritual quality as a swarup. You come down to zero, take all the qualities away. And Sankaracharya Mayavad is practically the same, because you also eliminate any possibility of having a unique characteristic relationship with Krishna. So again, that's ultimately, Sankaracharya is covered Buddhism. That's how it's described. It's the same ultimate annihilation of the spirit soul. The spirit soul does have qualities. When it begins to serve the Lord, when it's serving the Lord, these qualities all come out beautifully. in order to please Krishna. But if we try and annihilate those qualities, then we commit spiritual suicide. And I've said before so many times, my Gurudev said, like chickpeas, when you put them in a fry pan, that they can no longer ever sprout. So that's the condition of Buddhism and Mayavadism. It's the same. And Sankaracharya was the erector of this Mayavad philosophy. So we've been through these 4 Mahavakyas. This is what we went through yesterday. And we went through each one, and Babaji dismantled each one, showing how they were all actually illogical. So now we come to page 418, the second paragraph down. Brajanath is asking this question. I understand that the Vedas established the teaching of Achintya Bheda-tattva. Achintya Bheda-abheda-tattva. Will you please explain this more clearly with proofs from the Vedas themselves? So the Jiva is one with Krishna, and simultaneously he's not. There's this one and difference with Krishna. This is Achintya Bheda-bheda-tattva. Inconceivable. So now Babaji is going to give all the praman for this from Shastra. So important. Babaji, here are some of the many passages that describe the oneness aspect of Abhed-tattva or Bheda-abhed-tattva. I'll say it again. Oneness aspect, Abhed-tattva, of Bheda-abhed-tattva. Sarvam kalo idam brahm. Chandogya Upanishad 3:14:1. Everything in this world is certainly Brahm. So everything is Brahm, including the Jiva, is a part. But the Jiva has its independent nature. This is different to Sankaracharya. Atmavedam, Atmaivedam, Sarvam iti. Chandogya Upanishad 7:52:2. Everything that is visible is spirit, Atma. Sad eva somedyam agre asid ekam evad vityam. Chandogya Upanishad again 6:2:1. O gentle one, this world initially existed in a non-dual spiritual form, and before the manifestation of this universe, the Supreme Spirit was just a non-dual substance. So the Supreme Spirit is always there, and we have manifested from that Supreme Spirit with this jewel of independence. This is what we discussed in the 16th chapter. Evam Sadevo Bhagavan Varenyo Yoni Swabhavan Adhishtitya Eka. Svetashvarta Upanishad 5:4. Bhagavan himself is the master of all, even of the Devatas, and he is the only one who is worthy of worship. He is the cause of all causes, but he himself remains unaltered. That means no vikar, no transformation. Just as the sun remains stationary while spreading its radiance in all directions. So the sun, the object of the sun planet, is stationary, but the heat, the light, the radiance spreads in all directions. Shakti, in other words, is present everywhere. Krishna's Shakti is present everywhere. Now listen to the mantras that support Bhed, difference. Om Brahmavid Apnoti Param. Taittiriya Upanishad 2:1. One who understands Brahm attains the Para-Brahm. Mahantam Vibhum Atmanam Matva Diro Na Sochati. Katha Upanishad 1:2:22. A sober, intelligent person does not lament, even on seeing a soul confined in a material body, because he knows that the soul is great and present everywhere. That soul is supreme. So we never lament for the conditions of the body, because within each body is the spirit soul that is ultimately connected to the Lord in service. Satyam Jnanam Antanam Brahmyo Veda Nihitam. First Anucheda of Taittiriya Brahmananda Vali. Brahm is truth. knowledge, and eternity personified. That Brahm is situated in the spiritual sky, Paravyom, and is also present in the depth of all living entities' hearts. So immediately that's the true conception. One who knows this attains siddhi through his relationship with that indwelling supersoul, Antaryami, the omniscient Brahm. It's described how we are there's like two souls sitting within the heart. There's Paramatma and there's the Jivatma. Two souls are there in each heart. Yasmat param na paramam asti kinchit. Svetashvartara Upanishad 3:9. There is no truth superior to that Supreme Person. He is smaller than the smallest and greater than the greatest. He stands alone, immovable, like a tree, and in his self-effulgent abode. This entire universe rests within that one Supreme Person. How beautiful. This is Krishna Tattva. Pradhan Ketpragyan Patir Gunishar. Svetashvartu Upanishad 6:16. The Parabrahm is the Lord of the unmanifest material nature, Pradhan. The master of that Paramatma who knows all the individual living entities and the Ishvara of the three modes of material nature. He is himself transcendental to the modes of material nature. So these are all the differences between the Jiva and Krishna. How magnificent, how supreme, how achintya is the Lord himself, and how insignificant is the Jiva. So these are the praman for the greatness of the Lord. Tasyaisa atma vivarnute tanum swam. Katha Upanishad 2:23. He reveals his body only to those people in a very particular way. He reveals his body only to those people in a very particular way. We've said this many times, that each jiva has his individual rasa with the Lord. No one in existence has the same rasa as you have with the Lord. Everyone has a different rasa. Just like we see everyone is so different. We're sitting here, every single person is so distinct and different. All jivas are totally distinct, and they have distinct rasas ultimately with the Lord, which is what the Lord wants to taste. Tam ahu agriyam purusham mahantam. Svetashvarta Upanishad 3:19. Those who know the absolute truth chant his glories, knowing him to be Mahan, Adipurush, the great personality, and the cause of all causes. Yatan tatyo ritan vyadatat. Upanishad 8. By his inconceivable potency, he maintains the separate identities of all the eternal elements, along with their particular attributes. So there's another very beautiful verse, one of the Chatushlokis. What's that? Yata Mahanti Bhutani. It's saying that just like the great five elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, are present in all living bodies, but those five elements have their own individual existence also. Similarly, Krishna is in with all the bodies of the jivas, but Krishna himself has his own distinct reality and abode. Understand what I just said? This is a very beautiful verse. The Chatushloki, number 3. Naitad ashtakam vignatam yad etad yakshmam iti Kena Upanishad. Agni Dev, the Devata of fire, said to the assembled Devatas, I cannot fully comprehend the identity of this Yaksha. This was quoted before by Bhaktivinoda Thakur when the Devas were celebrating because they felt that they had performed a great feat by defeating the demons, but actually it was Krishna that defeated the demons. And then Krishna appears as a small Yaksha, and he tests the power of the Devatas, and he asks Agni Dev, can you burn this piece of straw? Agni Dev, the supreme god of fire, can't burn that straw. And this is the response that he gives. He can't comprehend the identity of this yaksha. Asadva idam agra asit. Taittreya Upanishad 271. In the beginning, this universe was just an unmanifested form of Brahm. This unmanifest became manifest in the form of Brahm. That Brahm manifested himself in male form, and for this reason, that male form is known as the Creator. So all is coming from the origin of that Creator. This is all praman for the greatness and speciality of that Brahm. Nityo Nityanam, Kata Upanishad 2.13, and Shvetashvarata Upanishad 6.13. Who is the supreme eternal being among all the eternal beings? Saravam Hietad Prameya Atma Brahm Soyam Atma Chatur Shpat. Mundaka Upanishad 2. All this is a manifestation of the inferior potency of Brahm. The spiritual form of Krishna is none other than the Para-Brahm. By his inconceivable potency, he eternally manifests himself in 4 nectarian forms, even though he is one. So, Krishna has 4 specific qualities himself. Is Prem Madhuri, Rup Madhuri, Lila Madhuri, and Vain Madhuri. These are the 4 particular qualities of the Lord. Simultaneously, the Lord has the Chatushloki. This is again another 4 manifestation. Chatuvyuha, rather. This Pradumna, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, and Vasudeva. These 4. And then there's a second quadruple manifestation also. So these distinctions of 4. And then there's Lord Narayan. Then there's the 3 Purush avatars. So all of these avatars are all manifesting from the one Supreme Krishna. Ayam Atma Sarvesham Bhutanam Madhu. Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad 2.5.14. The Vedas speak about Krishna in an indirect way by describing his attributes, and here they say that among all living beings, it is only Krishna himself who is sweet like nectar. Very beautiful verses, all praman, necessary praman to create the absolute, authentic platform for what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is presenting here. The absolute oneness and greatness of the Lord in comparison to the jivas. This is what has to be really deeply, we said this at the beginning, this understanding the jiva's insignificance and Krishna's greatness. So all these verses are emphasizing, highlighting Krishna's greatness, all of them. In these and countless other passages, the Vedas declare that the individual souls are eternally different from the Supreme. Every part of the Vedas is wonderful. In this portion here that I'm just going to read, this next paragraph, practically so far. This is like a summary. And start again. In these and countless other passages, Vedas declare that the individual souls are eternally different from the part of the Vedas is wonderful, and no portion of them can be neglected. So, Thakur Babaji is saying like this because again he's dismantling any of Mayavad conception that the individual souls are eternally different to the Supreme. It's not this aham brahmasmi. It is true that the individual jivas are eternally different from the Supreme, and it is also true that they are eternally non-different from the Supreme. Is the particular, that's like the essence of the whole chapter. In the Vedas to support both Bhed, difference, and Abhed, non-difference, because Bhed and Abhed exist simultaneously as aspects of the absolute truth. How beautiful is that? This relationship of the jivas with the Supreme is simultaneously one with him, is inconceivable and beyond mundane intelligence. Arguments about the matter only lead to confusion. Don't go that route. that takes you into Gyan, the thorny thickets of Gyan. Whatever has been said in the various parts of the Vedas is all true, but we cannot understand the complete meaning of those words because our intelligence is very limited. That is why we should never disregard Vedic teachings. So you honor the Vedic teachings with greatest respect, and we follow to the best of our ability, and within time Krishna will manifest his mercy. There's a beautiful verse. I don't have anything. It's Krishna Tulya Bhagavat Vibhu. Can't remember. But it's saying in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahaprabhu himself is saying, is totally non-different. He's saying every verse, prati shloke, prati akshare, is nana artha, is the same as Krishna. The Bhagavatam itself is the same as Krishna. So we have all of these opportunities to connect with Krishna directly in this world. We have the spiritual master, we have the Vaishnavas, we have Thakurji, we have Bhagavatam, we have the teachings. Everything is directly Krishna, we can connect with. So we have no shortage there. But we cannot understand the complete meaning of those words because our intelligence is very limited. That is why we should never disregard Vedic teachings. Naisha Tarkena Matir Upanaya Kata Upanishad 2:2 Nachiketa. It is not proper to use argument to destroy the wisdom of the absolute truth that you have received. Very important teachings, don't of our ability, and listen. Naha manye.
Debate, it says argument.
Yes. Do not. It is not proper to use argument.
Yeah.
Argument.
Yeah. Between debate and argument.
Pretty much the same. I'm arguing or I'm debating. I'm debating with somebody. That means someone has an opposite idea to what I'm saying. That's what debate is about, right? Debate isn't a mono debate. It's an argument.
Argument is tarka, whereas debate is you're trying to distill.
Debate is, I don't think that.
No?
Debate is when you're, generally they have a principle, right? You know, should cows be many? For example, some will say that they should be and some will say that they shouldn't be. That's like two sides. You have argument. That's a debate. Argument, not much different. Don't debate about this. Don't become argumentative. Accept what's written. So you see, my dear professor friend here, he's already arguing even though we come to the directive and not. But he's very humble. He can laugh at it. Naha manye no na vedati Upanishad 2:2. I do not think that I have thoroughly understood Brahm. Yes, this should be our conclusion. If we think that I have thoroughly understood Brahm, then we're definitely on the right track, if we have that mood. These Vedic mantras give clear instruction that the energy of the Ishvara is inconceivable and hence beyond mundane reasoning. Purna Manavo Dharma Sangha Vedam Chikitishtam Agna Siddhani Chatvari Na Hantavyami Hetubi. The Sattva Puranas, the Dharma instructed by Manu, the Sadanga Veda, and the Chikitsa orders of the Supreme, to try to refute by mundane arguments. So on any level, there's no need to find arguments. Arguments are fault, somehow or other. And that fault ultimately is that I want to be God. I can um, uh, propagate my own teaching or philosophy. Thus, it support the Bhedabheda-tattva, bearing in mind the ultimate goal of the Jiva. There is no Siddhanta that is higher than the principle of Bhedabheda-tattva. In fact, no other Siddhanta even seems true. That's very interesting. Even the Siddhants of the they have loopholes there that Mahaprabhu is purifying. Only when one is this philosophy of Achintya Bheda Abheda can one realize the eternal individuality of the Jiva and his eternal Sri Hari. It's everything. He's saying everything. He's saying the same thing again and again and again and again and again, because we need to hear it, from different perspectives. So thorough here. Without understanding this difference, the individual soul cannot attain the true goal of life, which is Priti. If we think we're one with the Supreme, how can you attain love for the Supreme? It's so simple, isn't it? The end appreciation of this philosophy really is very simple. If we think we're one with God, how can we have a relationship with God? But that thinking one with God is also correct with the desire of the Lord. I want to please the Lord. Then I can become one with Him in that sense. We've discussed this already. Brajanath, what is the evidence that Priti is the ultimate goal for the Jiva? Babaji, it is said in the Vedas, Esha iya sarva bhutai is the life of all that lives, and he shines within all beings. Those who know that by the science of bhakti do not look for anything else. Such Jivan Muktas are endowed with attachment, and they participate in his loving pastimes. Such bhaktas are the best of all those who are in knowledge of. They have a direct relationship with him. In other words, the most fortunate of those who associate with Krishna actively in his loving pastimes. These are Krishna's Nitya Siddha Harikas, Jivan Muktas. This sentiment of rati is a symptom of love for Krishna. It is explained further in the Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad 2.4.5 and 4.5.6. Na va are sarvasya karmaya sarvam priyam bhavatya atmanastu karmaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Yajnavalkya said, O Maitreyi, everyone is not dear to us because of their necessities. Rather, they are dear to us because of our own necessities. Understand that? Say it.
We care about people if we're like getting something for ourselves.
Yeah.
So, but if we're actually going for God, then it'll be based on our
Selflessness.
Yeah.
This is opening the understanding of the depth of our ingrained selfish behavior in this material world. Unless we're devotees and Vaishnavas and wanting to please the Lord with our life and soul. As soon as we want to give our complete soul, Sharanagat, fully dedicated to His pleasure, then we are holding on to selfish desires in one form or another. I want to be happy through the performance of my devotional service. I want to be happy through whatever activities I'm doing, and I'm calling devotional service, but I'm the one who wants to be benefited by it. Understand? But if it's focused on Krishna, by what does Krishna want? Krishna does want. He's hungry for love. This is how it's described. He's hungry for the affection from his devotees, just as his pastimes reveal in Vrindavan. He would go and steal the butter from all the houses because he knew the elderly gopis were making this butter ultimately because they wanted to please him. So he would go and steal that butter, reciprocate with them like that. So he was wanting to hungry for their love for him. I'll read that again because it's very beautiful. Yajnavalkya said, O Maitreya, everyone is not dear to us because of their necessities. Rather, they are dear to us because of our own necessities. Yes, this describes selfish nature. It is evident from this mantra that Priti, love for the Supreme, is the only prayojan for the jiva. Baba, there are many examples and such statements in the Vedas. Srimad Bhagavatam and Taittiriya Upanishad 271. Raso Vaisaha, Ko Hye Evanyat Ka Pranyat, Yad Esha Akasha Anando Nasyat, Esha Hi Evananda Yati. The Parabrahm, Paramatma, is nectar personified. The jiva finds pleasure in associating with that nectarian Paramatma. And who could live if he was not present in the heart? It is Paramatma alone who gives bliss to the jivas. What a beautiful verse. It is Paramatma alone that gives bliss to the jivas. When we connect in service to Paramatma, when we acknowledge the presence of Krishna within our hearts, this is the greatest bliss. The word Ananda, bliss, is a synonym for Priti, affection. All living beings are in search of pleasure and bliss. A mumukshu believes that liberation is the ultimate pleasure, and that is why he is mad for liberation. The sense enjoyers, bibhukshas, believe that the objects of sense gratification are the ultimate pleasure, so they pursue the objects of sense gratification until the end of their lives. It is the hope of achieving pleasure that induces everyone to perform all his activities. How profound is this? The bhaktas are also endeavoring for Sri Krishna's devotional service. In fact, everyone is looking for Priti, so much so that they are even ready to sacrifice their lives for it. In principle, everyone's ultimate aim is Priti, and no one can disagree with this. Everyone is exclusively searching for pleasure, whether they are believers or atheists, fruitive workers, karmis, jnanis, or whether they have desires or are desireless. However, they cannot achieve Priti simply by seeking it. You have to be guided by the path. You have to be on the proper channel, and then the pure Priti will come. Just by speculating and following any process that carries our imagination or hearts away in another direction is not necessarily correct unless it's guided clearly by Shastra. The fruitive workers believe that celestial pleasures are the ultimate bliss, but it is explained in Bhagavad Gita 9:20. Kshene punye martya lokam vishanti. After the residents of the gigantic celestial planets have completed the results of their good karma, they have to take birth again in the mortal earthly planets. The karmis who desire sense gratification constantly transmigrate from one planet to another in this way, seeking pleasure, Priti. So I'll just explain this here. According to this shloka of Gita, everyone realizes their mistake only when they fall from the celestial planets. A person may begin to covet the pleasures of the heavenly planets again when he falls to find pleasure in wealth, children, fame, and power that is available in the world of human beings. However, while he is falling from the celestial worlds, he adopts a respectful attitude towards an even greater happiness than that of Swaga, the heavenly planets. He becomes indifferent to the pleasures of the human worlds, the celestial planets, and even the higher planets up to Brahmaloka, when he understands that they are all temporary and that their happiness is also not fixed or eternal. He then becomes renounced and starts to investigate Brahm Nirvana and endeavor earnestly for impersonal liberation. However, when he sees that impersonal liberation also lacks bliss, he takes an unbiased Tatashta position and searches for another path that will enable him to achieve Priti, or pleasure. So we'll continue next week with the rest of this, and we'll complete, I think, this chapter. We've almost finished this chapter. Well, should I just go over and finish the chapter? Yes, I think so. I just keep reading because there's only a little bit left today. Today is Saturday and we're not coming tomorrow, so we'll just read a little bit more. How is it possible to experience Priti in impersonal liberation? Who is the personality who is supposed to experience such bliss? If I lose my identity, who will exist to experience Brahm? The very concept of the bliss of Brahm is meaningless, because whether there is pleasure in Brahm or not, the theory of impersonal liberation does not admit that anyone actually exists in the liberated state to enjoy such pleasure. So what conclusion can be drawn from such a doctrine? If I cease to exist when I am liberated, then my individuality is lost along with my existence. We've just described how the jiva cooks himself in this liberated condition. Nothing pertains to me anymore by which I can experience bliss or pleasure. Nothing exists for me if I myself do not exist. Right? Brahma Nirvana. Someone may say, I am Brahmrup. However, this statement is false, because the I, who is Brahmrup, is Nitya, eternal. In other words, if one says that he is Brahm, then he is also eternal. In that case, everything is useless for him, including the process to attain perfection, sadhan, and the perfection itself, siddhi. Therefore, Priti is not to be obtained in Brahm Nirvana. Even if it is perfect, it is something that is not experienced. It's like a flower growing in the sky. Very powerful explanation of the futility of Brahm Nirvana. Because this is the Mumukshu who wants to experience liberation, and he thinks he's going to get some bliss, but if he annihilates himself, who is going to experience the bliss? Bhakti is the only path by which the jiva can attain his true goal. The final stage of bhakti is prem, which is eternal. The pure jiva is eternal, pure Krishna is eternal, and pure love for him is also eternal. Consequently, one can only attain the perfection of true love in eternity when he accepts the truth of Achintya Bheda-Abhed. Otherwise, the ultimate goal of the jiva, which is love for the Supreme, becomes non-eternal, and the existence of the jiva is also lost. Therefore, all the Shastras accept and confirm the doctrine of Achintya Bheda-Abhed. All other doctrines are simply speculation. How powerful. Brajanath returned home in a blissful state of mind, deeply absorbed in thoughts about pure spiritual love. Thus ends the 18th chapter of Jaiva Dharma. So, completely incredible. What a powerful chapter. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. But I would advise you all to either listen to it again, or read sections again, or make notes on it, refresh it, and then the next time you read it, next year or the year after that, your understanding will be so much clearer and deeper. This is how it works. We're in process of learning these things. It's not necessarily that the lights go on immediately. It's a process to have realization of these truths. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Gaur Premanandi.